Yo, what's up? He's Greg. I'm your boy Robert. This is the All Out of Fucks podcast. Welcome to episode 34. We about to do some reviews of a couple movies, and welcome to Black History Month for those of y'all who only celebrate it 1 month out the year. Over here at the All Out of Fucks podcast, every month is African American History Month, Black History Month, whatever you want to call it. We celebrate us all day, every day. We glad to have some friends of the show back in the building. My homeboy Mike T, my homeboy Seth D. What's good with it? What's up, y'all?
What up? What up? Pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Happening, happening.
So as always, we appreciate you guys subscribing and checking us out on whatever platform you guys are enjoying us on. As always, subscribe, leave a review, hit us up in our inboxes or DMs. Let us know what you think about the show. We know you could be doing a lot of different things rather than spending your time listening to us just talk shit, but we appreciate it. So, uh, with that being said, Greg, what's been good with you, man?
Man, look, okay. So I'm just gonna, I'm just look, folks. I ain't gonna lie to y'all today. I'm drinking. I'm drinking, and I'm drinking for several reasons, and it's gonna be a good show. Not just because I'm drinking, but it's gonna be a good show. But like, it's been a day. Like Sunday has not been my day today. I mean, everything that could go wrong has possibly gone wrong, and so this is the only thing that's gone right. So I'm just gonna say that.
So,
But
Greg, this is so. Isn't this the week? Isn't this when the Arnold Classic typically would have been this weekend, or is that
no,
when?
that's next month, the first
That's
week of
next month. That's in
March.
March. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, first
Because
week of
I
March.
was thinking, I was like, damn shit, we coming up on a year when this pandemic shit started. Because I remember for us in Columbus, it kicked off because the
Yep,
Arnold Classic is typically that
yep,
weekend, and then they just shut it down. Like the folks were here, then they shut it down. That's a big production weekend for y'all. So I was
yeah.
just thinking about that.
It was definitely the big production weekend, and it was also the first major sporting event that they actually shut down
Right.
for COVID.
Yeah, I'm still
So
salty. I was supposed to be in Vegas the first weekend of the March Madness for a bachelor party weekend. And I remember because it started an argument with my wife because she was like, "Are you still going to March Madness?" So I was like, "Yes, I believe I am." Because that's when I I wasn't sure how real COVID was
right,
at
right,
that
right.
point. So I was like, "You are not about to ruin my Vegas weekend." And sure enough, COVID ruined that shit because they canceled the turn. That's and you know what? The man upstairs knew he had to cancel the tournament completely.
Right.
My dumb ass. Because otherwise, I'd have still carried my ass to Vegas. Probably like he's like, "Nah, I'm about to cancel this shit because you're too stupid not to stay home."
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Your bags was packed. You was ready to go,
you know how it is. You like shit. I need it.
and you put on that nonstop flight 7 in the morning from Columbus. Oh yeah, 3.5 hours of sitting there
Man,
waiting,
easy.
easy flying.
But
So
shit. So as y'all know, we got that blowing smoke session that we start this joint out with. So shit, Seth, Mike, how's your week been?
Not too bad, man. We got some snow here in Indiana, so
Oh yeah,
first big snow of the year. Trying to deal with that, man. Just surviving, just surviving.
yeah. We got hit too. It's funny though. Greg and I were talking. I think it was a couple episodes ago. We were talking about old man shit. So we're talking about getting snow blowers and lawnmowers and shit. And
shit.
so, and I was joking with him about how like I was talking about I still haven't gotten a snowblower, but I was talking about getting one. My wife was like, "What you need a snowblower for? It don't snow that much." Says the motherfucker who doesn't
Do any
That I ain't have
shoveling.
to go
completely
outside to do it.
Yeah.
like anybody who shovels snow like knows. Like, cause today this shit was probably about we think Greg up here is about 3 to 4,
I was
maybe
about to say
five.
3 to 4 inches, maybe five in some areas, but yeah, definitely 3 to 4 inches.
So being a lawyer, I'm automatically like I gotta clean this shit off because you can be responsible as a homeowner for the your right to your rights of way, so to speak. So if you don't shovel your shit, people slip and fall, sue you on your homeowner shit. I'm like I ain't got time for that. So my
Right,
wife is like, "Why are you shoveling the sidewalk?" Like, cause I'm not trying to get sued. Fuck all that
Right.
right.
shit.
The,
And now,
the the thing is not only shoveling it, but putting that salt down,
yeah,
that
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that de-icer, and I got like bags of it, and the cups where you just spread it out like
oh
your
yeah,
spreader and stuff. Like I don't play no games when it comes to
yeah.
that because I be worried.
That's that Chicago in you though.
Yeah, yeah, I be worried. That stuff got to melt, and I don't want nobody slipping and falling. So I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
and they just do shit different. I mean, like, maybe I'm just spoiled because from having lived in Chicago for a short period of time and like family being from Chicago, like Chicago doesn't play around on the snow. Like
Mhm.
they
Nope.
will the night before shit even gets on the ground, they got their trucks out, salting the
They
road.
ready,
Yeah.
prepared.
Yep.
Out here, it's like it's all reactionary. Like, we'll wait till that shit comes down,
And they know it's coming. That's the
and they
shit.
know
They
it's
know
coming.
they know it's coming, but then, what was that shit in Indiana? The first time I saw them put down sand,
Like, that was
that
some
blew my
bullshit,
mind.
sand and dirt and shit.
Yeah, I blew my mind. I was like, now you making this shit all dirty and muddy. What the
Right.
hell is this shit?
Because that's because they trying to preserve their roads in Indiana and Chicago. They don't give a
Oh, they don't
fuck.
care. With potholes everywhere.
They don't give a fuck.
Tearing everything up
They're
with
like
the
shit,
sun.
the snow gonna be gone though, but it's gonna fuck your car up. But
Fuck the roads up and everything.
Because they know people be driving crazy in Chicago. They was like, no, they need all the traction they gonna
oh
get.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how that
that shit's
is.
hilarious. Like I remember my mother. Every time we go back to Chicago, she had. I mean, her blood pressure had to be sky high because driving to Chicago is you got to get your mind right to get readjusted to Chicago.
Yeah, you definitely do. And I just want to give it up to Chicago drivers. People say we drive crazy and fast in Chicago. It's not the fact that we drive crazy and fast. We know how to drive.
Those are
There are
facts.
there are tests and stuff we got to do to learn how to drive in high school. And God damn it, we do it. And we the only people in the world that'll be on the expressway doing about 90 and literally an inch and a half away from each other. Won't touch.
That's
Won't
fact. Those are
touch.
facts, though. Those are facts. Like anybody who's driven in Chicago or ridden in Chicago knows that like what is close in Chicago is damn near an accident anywhere else.
It
Anywhere
brings
else.
out all the cuss words in me every
Yeah.
time I travel there, man.
They're like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, no, this is normal, dog. Like,
This is called Lakeshore Drive. Hello, how
right.
you doing?
Right.
This is
This is
what
just
you
that's how
do.
it goes down.
Yep.
It's
So
good. But no, so I mean, and no, I know Seth. So what you think about this Final Four and everything going to be in Indy?
I'm conflicted about it. Obviously, it's good for the state economy, but
Uh-huh.
my personal opinion is I'm more worried about my health, and I don't
Okay.
need people coming from 78 cities bringing their COVID around me.
right.
Yes, that's what I haven't figured out. Have they said whether they're going to have fans?
I was just talking to somebody about this. They have not said that, but the way things are going,
Hmm.
I would say they would have limited fans.
Yeah, kind of like the playoffs for the NFL. Like they'll do the
Yeah,
regular season no fans, but
yeah.
as soon as it come to
I
the
mean,
moneymaker,
with us getting everybody getting vaccinated and Biden doing
Yeah.
his 100 days of whatever, I think they're trying to make sure that this economy starts boosting around that time.
yeah, if that's that fake security, like
You,
vaccines, we good.
you see what I'm saying? Yep.
Yeah. Well, so I heard that they're going to actually do some stuff at remote sites at IU and Purdue.
IU,
Um,
Purdue. I may be lying, but I think Ball State is either a venue or a backup. And
it's got to
obviously
be a
they'll have
backup.
Lucas Oil.
Nobody's going to Muncie. For
Ain't
real.
nobody making it out of Muncie.
Nobody's going to Muncie.
And I think
That's-
Lucas Oil and Bunkers Life as well.
yeah.
But come on, man, you was in Lafayette for 4 years, but let's not
Hey,
start talking about
Lafayette
that.
is a metropolitan city in Indiana. Don't get it
Lafayette
twisted.
Lafayette brought Tennessee to the yard.
It's a bastion of intellectualism.
What the hell?
Don't get it
Even
twisted.
they gotta laugh at that.
His cup is full, ladies and gentlemen. His cup is
You
full.
can't give these brothers from IU any space, Greg. Like
You gotta step on that neck
none.
from the jump, huh?
That nigga
Let
came
'em know.
out straight. It is a colloquialism of great
He
Hey,
came out like
fortitude.
T.I., didn't
the fact that I could
He
the fact
came
that I
at
could
it.
Even pull that out that quick lets you know the level of the education at Purdue. So be on
he?
the scoreboard, motherfuckers. Scoreboard.
I can't say shit, man. That's why, man. I can't say shit.
All we ever say is like, did y'all put anybody on the moon? That's it.
They
That's
go,
it.
let it be said for our conspiracy theory episode, did we put anybody on the moon?
Well, see, yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Let it be said. That was all a sound stage, bro.
Yeah.
Even the
Where do
bird
y'all
sounds
where do
crazy,
y'all
man.
stand on that, Greg? We didn't talk about that. Where do you stand on us who
But
haven't gone to the moon?
Man, that
man,
was a middle school auditorium, dude.
That's the IU hater. Like,
man.
nah,
Oh
the
well,
motherfucker didn't go.
well, hell yeah, they mad all the way around.
Nah,
From what
man.
from what I heard, over Redenbacher was gonna go to IU, and then he turned right around,
Not Orville Redenbacher.
turned
Shit.
right around and said, "You know what? I'll go to Purdue."
Redenbacher.
We be pulling out these old white men like shit.
That's right.
At least they got Mark Cuban. We got these old ass motherfuckers like we still pulling out.
Hey,
But
I'll pull John Wooden out in a minute. I don't give a shit.
yeah.
I'll
John
pull,
Wooden's also from Martinsville, so fuck, take that for what it's worth too.
yeah,
Shit.
Well,
yeah,
these
So
yeah.
motherfucking, or excuse me, pardon me.
you good. This is all out of
These
No,
fucks.
that's all that fucks.
these astronauts you talking about is from Mitchell, so they
Right.
ain't much better.
You're right. You're right about that. You're right about that.
all these, all of
Shit.
them be ready to lynch you.
Right. Fucking Southern Indiana, man. Like we got time for that shit. Seth and I know that shit. Like for
Yep,
real.
See,
Grew up in that shit.
yep,
Y'all just came to Indiana.
mm.
yeah. We was living it.
Totally different ball game, but shit. So yeah, we where now? What's the deal, Greg? Have you decided on vaccine whether you getting one or not?
um, I might actually be in a space where I might have to get
Yeah, I
one.
bet. Like, cause you guys have still been having to do,
Right.
go in the office
I
and
don't think, yeah, I don't think we're really, once that opens up, that phase opens up, I don't think we actually have a choice for what we're doing.
Turner. Did
Because,
you get it?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be the same thing. I'm gonna have to get it at some point in time. Like
Oh, okay.
when the university has it for all their staff, I'll get it then. So until then, I'm gonna
Mhm,
sit back and wait.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
probably gonna have to break down and get that shit. Seth, did you have to get that as part of your job? Because I know you have a lot of exposure, just like students and being in the facilities and stuff like that. So I'm sure it probably makes sense.
It's a sore subject, but my frontline staff has not been offered that yet through the
Really,
university.
Mm.
they the main ones cleaning shit up, ain't they?
Do you hear what I said?
Wow.
The fuck?
Wow.
It's a
Wait.
touchy
It's
subject.
a touchy subject.
Um, but myself personally, no, I have not. But at some point, I will
Hmm.
sort of like, yeah, it'll
I
be
got you.
required, but not yet.
So I saw Greg. We talked about the Johnson and Johnson joint.
Hmm.
So apparently the efficacy of it seems pretty low, like initially, because they released their studies, and I think at some point it's like 85% effective, and you're talking about that's still pretty good. But I think over time it becomes just as effective as the other two. It's just it takes a month or two for it to become fully effective up to the 90 percentile. But I
Right.
thought that was it's just interesting to see people kind of process information on that shit because they saw that 65% initially in the first like 20 days. They're like, oh, this ain't shit. But they don't realize, I mean, you got 2 doses of the Moderna and all the other shit.
Right.
So,
Which needs a 30-day gap between them.
right. So it's
Yeah.
basically the same thing. I
Yeah.
mean, but that's the issue. You got some folks out here taking that first dose, like, oh, I'm good. And they're on the club. Like,
Yeah.
like it don't work
Straight to
like that.
Houston. Trey Songz all across America, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm like, damn. And then
I
they out
told,
here like, and then somebody will fuck around and catch it after having gotten the vaccine. And you got these motherfuckers out here like, up, see, they
shit
just
don't
out here
work.
trying to hustle. It's like, no, it doesn't work because it's a 2 dose fucking vaccine. Shit.
It's a 2 dose vaccine. They told your ass don't drink no alcohol after taking the first dose, and your ass took the damn dose, went straight to the club because it was a
You,
Friday, and then
you
you
on a Friday.
it was a fucking Friday, and
Oh
then
shit,
your ass
I'm
like,
out here.
I'm
Let's
I'm
go.
doing it. And then next thing you know, you all up there trying to get on somebody's TV show talking about shit don't work.
Don't
Yeah,
work.
yeah. So
But
yeah,
I
we'll
told
see.
you,
What
I told you what they said about that chickenpox vaccine for me, right?
I don't think you said that at the other
Yeah.
show.
So since I didn't have them as a kid, um,
Oh, you ain't had
as
the
a
chicken pox?
no. So
Oh
what it
shit, everybody stay
was?
away from Greg.
Well, no.
Right.
Here's the deal. They have a vaccine for it now, but I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
when the vaccine first came out, it was a 2 dose vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to get it every year if you were a guy, because it killed men as an adult. So you had to get it every year, and it was a 2 dose vaccine. Now it's just a 1 dose, and you're done. You don't have to keep getting it or whatever. But when it first came out, they were like, you need to take this. And I said, well, okay, what happens in between now and the second dose? They was like, don't get the chicken pox. It's like,
The
ain't that a
hell?
bitch?
Shit.
What the fuck?
Like, don't get that shit.
You mean this first dose don't mean shit, huh?
We don't know what to tell you. Just don't get it.
Don't get
May
that
the
shit.
force be with you.
Yeah, right. Take this and may the force be with you. I'm like, hey, this a bitch.
Like, you should have found a way to get that shit when you was a kid.
Oh, dude, all them damn chicken pot parties that everybody was having. My mama was the anti chicken pot party.
Oh,
She
that's
was.
a chicken pox party.
You don't know
What
what the
the
chicken pot
hell?
party? That's when parents would be like, oh, they got the chicken pox, and they all throw all their kids in there.
That's some QAnon
That's
shit.
that's some Chicago shit. I'm gonna tell
Man,
you right now.
I'm itching right now, man. Let's.
That's
Right,
some
like,
Chicago shit. What
I
they
mean,
would do is you find out you had the chicken pox. All them parents on the block or whatever be like, you going to stay over there because they figured you get it all, get everybody get it together. You ain't got to deal with it. And my mother was the reverse. My mother was like, fuck no. Your
but
ass.
you know, we we overreacting like we surprised. Ain't that's no different than these motherfuckers out here like herd immunity. Let's hit the club. Let's go.
Right,
Right,
right.
Like
right.
motherfuckers is thinking the same way. In
Well, I
Atlanta,
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
like Georgia in Atlanta, they ain't stayed inside yet. They've been out
No, they
here.
ain't closed down not one time.
Nah.
Now, every time I see my people from Atlanta, they be out in the fucking restaurants. No
Dude, they
mask,
shocked
no
me.
nothing.
Houston's the
Shocked
same
me.
way.
Yeah,
Houston's
I
the
got
same
I
way.
got people in Houston too. Like shit's bananas, dude. It is what it is to each his own. I'm not gonna go off on a COVID tangent
Nah,
today,
I'm not. I'm not mad at them. I'm a little envious.
right.
I want to be out there too, smoking hookah and shit. But
Except for the whole responsibility thing.
you know what I'm
Uh,
saying? Like,
Damn this responsibility.
so I wish I was willfully ignorant, but fuck it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what sometimes you're like, damn, I wish I was trifling just to just do what the fuck I want to do. Over
I
here
can
being
see me
responsible
turn
and
up.
shit.
But you know what you'll do if you was trifling. You'll sit there and say, fuck it, I'm going to the damn cigar lounge. I'm
That's
gonna
it.
have me a smoke.
That would be my rebellious shit. Like going.
I'm going. God damn it. You'd be like, why are you yelling at yourself?
I need that. You understand how much I need that shit. Like I just got some new cigars. I even take a look at it. My brother-in-law sent them in a care package, like to taunt me. Basically, like I know you're not out smoking, but you could be smoking these.
Man, you saw what I was doing yesterday, so
So, but shit. So fuck it. Let's just jump into it. To the session today. So for those of you who are checking in, y'all know what the episode is. Today we're gonna try and deconstruct, or just kind of give our feelings on American Skin, Nate Parker's American Skin, produced by Spike Lee, and then One Night in Miami, the joint by Regina King, which both recently came out. We all got a chance to check those out. Shit, we're gonna kind of see. I guess fuck it. I mean, let's start with what y'all want to start with. What y'all feel the
start
most
with
powerful about?
well, I was about to say start with One Night in Miami because
All right.
American Skin has several layers to
Yeah,
We
unfold.
got to go deeper into that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
All
make
right.
sure you
Fuck
watch
it.
it before you listen to this podcast because it will be.
Oh yeah. So spoiler alert. We don't give a fuck. So, and we'll put that on the show notes. Like if you ain't seen it, that's your fault. So,
Yeah, because there's probably no stopping me at this point.
and if you don't know what if you don't know what the shit about by now, I mean, fuck. I mean, this ain't like Avengers Endgame or some shit. Like you already know the outcome of all this shit. So
right.
Thanos dies, by the way, but
Bobby Womack showed up to Sam Cooke's funeral with his wife. Like,
right,
Like a
right,
bad episode of the Five Heartbeats.
right. So I mean, so what did y'all think about One Night in Miami?
Hey, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Just to have all those powerful people up in that same place at one time, and then seeing we lack that type of brotherhood nowadays. When I say that, we lack the fact that we can sit down, disagree with one another, be open and honest, truthful for the betterment of one another. And those conversations aren't easy, but to see that they can have them and still come together and still be close and friends and keep it moving for the betterment of each other and the people, I wish we had that nowadays.
Right.
Everybody too scared to say something.
Well, yeah, people don't want to hurt each other's
Destructive.
feelings like
Yeah,
that. But what you think about how they went into depth on Sam Cooke? Because what I've been hearing is a lot of people were shocked at the complexity of Sam Cooke.
dude.
Hold
But
up,
you
depth. They didn't go into depth the same Cook.
Well, when I say go into depth, they made it a point to to show a different side of Sam Cooke than what most people know.
I think you had to. They had for the movie and entertainment value of it. They had to go in on him in that manner for the song at the end
Yep.
to to be so powerful as it was.
To understand how powerful the lyrics were.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, because I know she made it a
it
point.
wouldn't have, according per the movie, he wouldn't have wrote it if they didn't get in on him during that time, or he wrote it, or he never would have came out with it if they didn't go in on him like that.
Oh,
So I guess
they challenged him basically.
Yeah, because we don't,
Malcolm
like I said,
challenge.
we don't have
Malcolm,
that
yeah, I'm about to
yet.
say they ain't. It wasn't really they.
Yeah.
It was really right. It was really
Malcolm.
Malcolm. Yeah.
Um, so the first thing I thought about watching that shit was, I'm like, okay, first of all, how historically accurate is this shit? I don't know what this is based on. I didn't get a
Right.
chance to look at that either. I know they're all friends, and what's interesting about watching that is as we watch it in hindsight, we understand like the significance of all these guys as historical figures. But I imagine in the moment and in the time, it's not nobody's looking at it like, oh, these are history makers, so to speak, right? So at the
Right.
time, Muhammad Ali had just won, the championship. He's still Cassius Clay, so it's still kind of unknown, so to speak. Malcolm, you know how they felt about Malcolm in real time. Malcolm over the decades has become more revered. Jim Brown, imagine it was the same way, and Sam, as well. So, I mean, it's interesting. I took a step back and kind of viewed it through the lens of, I imagine that's how a bunch of conversations go these days. I mean, what's to say that's not? I'm not comparing us to those four or anything like that, but what's to separate that conversation from any conversation the four of us would have, and then perhaps history looking back on a particular moment like that, the
And I
same
thought
way,
that was the beauty of it.
right?
Hmm.
Those are conversations that we had in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
You challenging me challenging you,
Right.
us bonding over whatever event it may be.
Right.
They just happen to be they just happen to ascend to you know for the
Right.
greatest people at their crafts of all time.
So
It
one of the
was interesting how she basically introduced everybody. Because if you're looking at this movie and you don't know shit about, well, if you don't know shit about Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, Jim Brown, or Sam Cooke, you've been in the fucking hole. But if you
Mhm.
don't know shit about them, because white people, I mean, truthfully, white people, they don't have to. That ain't their news. They don't.
Right,
They
right.
know what they know. So, but if you don't know shit about them, how she introduced each person was interesting because you had Jim Brown literally go to this dude's house who you felt as though knew him well, revered him as a human being, as a person, and then she hit you in the gut with the whole, yeah, we don't let niggas in the house. That meant something. That showed you exactly his status. Yeah, we like you, nigga, on the field, but yeah, don't think
How
you
Mm-hmm.
gonna
how
come up walking up in here.
how relevant and prevalent is that right now and today with the social arrest that's going on now,
Right.
and how whether you're a professional athlete, collegiate athlete, trying to take a stand for something or bring awareness to something that you believe in, and you're taking a stand one way or another, and you're being ridiculed for it, but they're gonna cheer for you on that field, but they don't love you and what you stand for off the field.
Right.
Right.
That's how that hit me right there.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same arguments they were having then are the same ones that we're having now, right? On some level. I mean, you've
Hmm.
got the perspective, and and I'll unpack this too. Like, I mean, I feel like Regina might have fallen into the same trap when it comes to Malcolm that a lot of folks fall into, basically just kind of putting him into a certain category. But beyond that, Malcolm falls in that role like, look, at some point, everybody's got to be fighting these battles for, everybody, regardless of your station. And, him and Sam get into that shit basically because they're like, well, Sam's like, fuck it. I'm trying to basically, Sam, I felt like occupied the lane of, I'm going to try and get this money. I mean, honestly, he occupied that Jay-Z lane, right? I can't
Right.
help to pull from one of them.
Yep.
So, and then you got Malcolm doing the Malcolm shit, basically like, no, I mean you got to use your voice for uplifting blackness. Now, the one issue I kind of had with the interpretation of Malcolm is how impetuous Regina made him seem. Like she made him seem like very reactionary to a lot of shit, which in high school I read the autobiography. I've read everything Malcolm X, and I've listened to all the speeches, seen all the interviews, and I don't know him privately, right? So I mean, you say take this for what it's worth, but he never comes across as somebody who's um, a overly emotional or b impetuous, right? He's very contemplative. He's very meticulous and very intentional, right? I felt like there were moments in that movie where they were basically trying to add this layer of sensitivity and emotion. Not to say black men aren't sensitive and emotional, but it felt forced in certain points.
I
And
took that. Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. I was just gonna say I took it as she was trying to show his vulnerability at the time and space that he was in. That's how I took it. I think I mentioned it on that last episode when we said we were going to do this episode.
Mhm.
I was like, she made Malcolm vulnerable, and to most people, Malcolm is never vulnerable.
Because he's not. I guess that's the point, right? Like I'm not saying he's not vulnerable. There's ways to be vulnerable without being emotional, right? And not to say that men can't be vulnerable, and we are, right? But I guess there's nothing the way she went about it, or not she, because I know this is based on. I think this is based on a play, so I
Right.
think this might have just been an adaptation of a play. So whoever wrote the script, so I'm not going to necessarily charge that to Regina King, but
Right.
whoever wrote the script, there seems to be this new kind of push to fucking I'm gonna say it, to feminize like black male strength, right? Because you guys remember that book that came out I think a couple years ago where they're trying to say that Malcolm had engaged in some homosexual relationships or something like that. Like it was a new
Whoa,
book.
wait, what
Uh,
now? What's
yeah, it
it?
was a few years ago. There's a book that's out where they're trying to allege that he might have had some homosexual relationships, which you never heard that other ever before, right? But I mean, it is what it is, and people can take it for what it's worth. But there does generally seem to be this attack on black masculinity and an attempt to, um, and I guess I wouldn't say the movie necessarily emasculated Malcolm, but it's not the Malcolm I've read or interpreted from anything I've ever seen.
Bob, I obviously I wasn't around then, but the adaptation of Spike Lee's joint,
Right.
Mhm.
um, it really maybe it over masculated Malcolm,
That's fair.
and so now we're trying to come back. Um, I keep wanting to use the word submissive, but it's not submissive, so I don't
Right.
even want to use it.
Right.
Um, but there was a definite power difference between him and Elijah Muhammad that Elijah Muhammad hasn't been able to, what's the word, capitalize off. His story hasn't been glorified as much
Sure.
as Malcolm's,
Right.
and
Right.
so we have to be able, or not we, but I think we got to find the balance in there.
Sure.
Well, and I think they touched on it when Sam was like, "Look, you are who you are, but let's not get it twisted. I live in the damn town. I live down the street from the damn man's mansion. I know
Right,
what Elijah Muhammad is doing in Chicago.
right,
You sitting in New York in your temple in New York, and y'all taking orders and whatever. But I'm telling you right now, I know the dude,
right.
and they made it a point to say that to show the difference in where Malcolm's power lies and where Elijah Muhammad's power lies.
Yeah,
And that's why I said I used the term vulnerable. I didn't
vulnerable.
necessarily use
Yeah,
it feminine. I just said he was vulnerable because he was at a time where he started whatever Kool-Aid he drank at the beginning of his teachings from Elijah Muhammad. That's those veils were starting to come off. And so you have a person who did not understand what was going on based on what he was taught. And he's trying to grasp that. And he's also trying to grasp and keep his family safe while
Mhm.
being damn near he what it showed is he was paranoid as shit by this
Mhm.
time because he's getting it from every which way. White folks coming at him, black folks coming at him. Like he don't
His
know who
people,
to trust. His people.
inside, outside, yeah.
Yeah, so he don't know who to trust, and he has to grapple with that, all while dealing with the fact that Elijah Muhammad is possibly a con man.
At
Like,
what, 30 years old?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So that's why I said it was more of a vulnerability for him than necessarily a feminism. Like
Eh,
it.
I
Put it this
just
way, he just got rocked. Like there's a
we
bunch of information that came at him at too much at one time, and so
that whole early 90s period um really glamorized him. It didn't humanize him. It made us, so I think we're becoming a little more, he's becoming a little more human in the stories that we're telling nowadays.
And I guess I don't necessarily. I mean, I'm not sure. I totally agree because I mean, even within the context, because obviously he's the one that's responsible for the autobiography, right? So he's writing his own autobiography. He's presenting himself in a way, and the Malcolm X movie is significant. Is wholly predicated on the autobiography. I mean, it follows the autobiography pretty closely. So,
Yeah.
um, so I mean, I guess you got to take that with a grain of salt. Malcolm was never the type of person that I took as somebody who was trying to spin his image for any particular type of reason. I'm sure everybody is subject to that, but I think the reason why Malcolm resonates with everybody with so many people now, well, maybe not at the time because hindsight is 2020, but he resonates with people so much because he comes across more genuine and honest than anybody, even more so than Martin, and because of what he went through, right? So he comes across as this individual who's brutally honest when it comes to himself, when it comes to his people, across the board. So I think for at least for me, there's an inclination for me to buy into the autobiography a little bit more than necessarily some other adaptation. I say that to say I do feel like there was vulnerability within the context, even the Malcolm X or the autobiography, because he talks about how his world basically came down and was crashing based on the fact that he found out Elijah Muhammad wasn't who he thought he was, and there was the vulnerability. It just is how it was. I just feel like in the movie, and it's not necessarily the vulnerability because every man is vulnerable to a certain extent, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it was just he came across as very impetuous to me, in the movie, just basically like constantly, he seemed way more unsure of himself than, you know, everything I read about him seems to be as far as, his mission and what he was trying to accomplish. And perhaps that was who he was, but I guess that's my question as to where this comes from. And I know this is artistic interpretation, so take it for what it's worth. But um,
well, that was the one part I didn't like about the story or the conflict between him and Sam. The one part I didn't like is when Sam sat there and said, "Look here, nigga. Look, there's three stars here, and then there's you." That's the shit I did not like. I was like, "Oh,
But that's the
yeah."
thing though, like, oh shit, we got shit falling over here.
I was
But
like,
that's the
"Somebody break it in." Why am
right,
I about to go
right.
get
I
my
was looking
shotgun?
too.
Like
Like
I
I
could
was
do
like,
some
shit.
shit.
Like, let me hop on 70 right now. Get over here.
right.
Right. I'm like, what the
Um, damn, I done forgot what I was gonna say, but um, I would like to get brought back for the conversation with the Martin and Malcolm.
Mhm.
fuck?
Well, so
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
go
Yeah.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I say that to say, so I bring that comparison up because so there's a couple layers of Martin. I know Martin is historically misinterpreted as well. He's now he's celebrated pretty much across the board. At the time, he was hated when he was killed and he died because he was moving into a space that was, I think, closer to what Malcolm had been talking about at the time he passed, which was economics and poor people's campaign, that type of stuff. So I'm not under any impressions, but um, Martin had his issues, whether they be infidelity or whatever is going on. He had those issues, right? You don't really hear those stories about Malcolm, and you would have, right? Because the FBI had things on everybody. So if there was some shit to find out about Malcolm, you would have known it about it. Now they painted him in the picture of just being a hater of white folks or
Just completely militant.
perpetuating violence, that
Yeah.
type of stuff, which is it's a pretty elementary interpretation of what he was talking about. But even some black folks fall into that category of thinking that he was just simply talking
Right.
about killing other white
Military and
folks.
shit.
But Martin has never been my favorite civil rights leader. I actually I like the Martin closer at the time he passed because he lines up more or less with the way I see the world. But the the whole and I get the philosophy of the nonviolence and all that type of stuff. I get it. I just didn't think it's not something I necessarily in hindsight would agree with. I don't know who I would have been back then, but I have an idea. But I don't know what I don't know where you were going with that as far as Seth, as far as Martin and Malcolm, but
I know at one point you will have to have this conversation. I think or you will have this conversation. Um, I think Malcolm's imagery. I mean, you got to think the autobiography is just his account,
hmm
him telling Alex Haley what's up.
that's true.
Right.
There's many different versions. You look at me differently than I look at myself, man.
Sure, sure.
So,
It's
um,
it's it's Jordan's last dance.
yeah, yeah.
You got to. I'm just saying. We all watched it, but that was Michael's version.
Yeah, but like real talk, real talk.
And Mike's great. We all love Mike.
Yeah,
We all
Right,
love
right,
Malcolm.
right,
I'm not saying that, but
right.
real talk though. What have you heard? What have you heard about Malcolm? Like beyond just his autobiography, and because what we're talking about is like, so for instance,
I'm just saying the vulnerability. My whole thing is the difference in the power level
mhm,
the between him and Elijah Muhammad. I think Elijah Muhammad had a lot more power over this man, a lot more influence over this man than we were led to believe through these things, which ended up. I see your face
mhm. No, I'm
because,
no, I'm
but
I think he's acknowledged that before. I mean, I think in whether it's Spike Lee's movie or the
you're a
autobiography.
grown ass man, dog.
Wait, where you going? Where you going? I'm
You're a grown ass
trying to let
man.
you land the plane.
How, how's this man have this much power over
What
somebody
I guess what power are you talking? I mean, but you got to think
without
about.
them being unsure of themselves? So there are some uncertainties that some insecurities that
Look,
man had.
Malcolm bought 100% into the Nation of Islam, right? 100% coming out of jail and he talks about in his autobiography. This is from his perspective. This is the man who saved his life, so to speak. So, I think he even acknowledged in his autobiography that there's probably an unfounded 100% faith and trust in Elijah Muhammad. And he talks about that all the time. Like he led everything with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says this, says that, says this. That's how the nation was. So I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily been hidden from sight. But I do kind of before I don't want to leave this alone. I'll let you finish it up, Seth. But like I do want to touch on the perception of the nation off of the One Night in Miami joint because I know a lot of folks I know who are affiliated with the nation don't like the way they were I guess presented in the movie. But I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think it's fairly accurate. But I don't know what y'all's thought process it was on how the nation was presented from the perspective of the movie.
What were the negatives?
Yeah, well, some people would say that the nation was presented it in a negative fashion, right? So the whole thing about being affiliated with the FBI, and I think all this stuff's been proven, honestly. But
Right.
and I think one of the problems the nation had, they've never really come to grips with the fact of the role they had in the assassination of Malcolm X, right? Because a lot of folks I deal with in the nation, like I tell them all the time, like I still don't feel totally comfortable with the nation, even Farrakhan. And I know, the way people kind of revere Farrakhan these days, and Greg, you know how Farrakhan is revered in Chicago. But the reality is, what they've never really answered for is their role in the death of Malcolm X. And I think a lot of black folks, quite frankly, don't feel totally 100% comfortable with the nation based off of that relationship and what their role was in killing Malcolm.
Right.
Yeah, but I think also black folks also understand too. If you're a person that view the nation as something to be revered, that's one thing. But if majority of the black folks in America have a different view of the nation and they view it as what most people call a gang, if they view it as a gang, you just know how gang shit work.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't question it beyond the fact that when somebody out, they out. I mean, you can watch a mob movie and see that when you on the outs, and whatever happens. So I don't think they question the nation to the degree in which you probably would like them to question it, but I just think they just let it go and said that's what that was.
Yo, what's that documentary? Did y'all see that?
Which one?
Which,
Who killed Malcolm? Like,
oh yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
we saw that.
yeah, and
oh,
then
boy in Philadelphia.
yeah, and supposedly he just recently died.
Right, right. What
Yeah,
was that? What was that called?
I can't
um,
remember.
is it the
I have
murder
to,
of Malcolm? It's on Netflix.
we'll have to look it
Okay,
up.
it's on
Yeah,
Netflix.
it's on Netflix. I
Oh,
I gotta look it up. It's in
But
my list because I watched it.
what I
so
find
some things are just understood, and
what I find interesting is the fact that I run in a lot of folks in the nation who they still to this day they look at Malcolm like a Judas. Like even today, like folks who are fully integrated into the nation, like they still don't necessarily they don't revere Malcolm the same way that folks outside the nation do. Like
Well, and that's because of his public comments, though. Like when
sure.
all this shit was kicking off, and he realized that okay, he's on his own damn island. He made sure to let everybody know who was doing the shit to him,
Hmm.
and I think that's what that is. They was like, you snitching,
huh?
uh, okay,
Snitching.
yeah, you snitching. You just gonna keep saying Elijah Muhammad's
And
name
and
like that, huh?
and another thing, oh man,
But it's
That's
the
some
what.
hey look, it's somebody so if somebody's responsible for burning my shit down. Like
Yeah,
you
but
think
I mean,
I'm about to figuratively burn this shit down my word, you damn right. Like and my
but
family's in it.
but here's the thing, though. Who is gonna help him?
What
It
do you
ain't
mean?
gonna be the cops. It ain't gonna be white
Yeah, but
folks.
I
Like,
don't think Malcolm. But Malcolm was unapologetically speaking truth all the time. He didn't give a fuck. Like so,
oh,
whether
I think he
he
gave.
knew he.
hold up, man, hold up, man, hold up, man. Like seriously, man. Like you're talking about a man that was 30 years old that had 6 different lives. He gave a fuck. He was changing for a reason. He wasn't as secure in himself as you think he was, and I'm kind of
I mean,
concerned.
but what are you basing that on though?
His
Other than just
life.
your gut.
No,
Yeah.
that's you don't change that many personalities within your life.
But so any interpretation you have about Malcolm, you have to base it off of either somebody else's version of what you hear about him or what his own words, right?
Autobiography. You go from
Okay.
Detroit Red to Malcolm X to or to whoever he was in between there to Malcolm X to
To El Haj Malik Shabazz, and yeah.
yeah, yeah, man. He was searching for himself. He kept searching for himself.
No, I
He
think he's on
wasn't
it.
as secure in himself as you would want to think.
No, I mean, so I think I think that's a misinterpretation, right? So just because you're on a journey trying to find yourself doesn't mean you're not secure in the person you are at each stage, right? So like, I mean, so that based on that interpretation, we're all insecure throughout the
This
entire
nigga was
process of
Shaquille
life.
Sunflower, Bob.
Really? Malcolm Shaquille Sunflower now? Really?
I'm joking too.
I'm about to. Hey, look, I'm about to kick Seth out the episode right now. Like that's blasphemous.
Wow.
But no, real talk. Like, so I mean, I don't think I agree with you. He was constantly on. He was constantly on a metamorphosis, and he was constantly growing. I think that was kind of the nature of who he was. And full disclosure, Malcolm's autobiography changed my life in high school. You know, everything I read about Malcolm changed how I perceived everything, changed how I viewed the world. I
I
think
think he's a
that
great person. Just think he's flawed.
everybody's flawed. I'm not saying he's not flawed. So I don't think anything I say should be interpreted as him not being flawed. I'm just saying from the perspective of and I'm not sure how we got on this particular path. I think we're talking about whether how he felt about everybody coming at him or him feeling like there was nobody there to keep him responsible. Or we were talking about the house being burnt down. I just don't think he was necessarily. Um, I don't think he was overtly once the betrayal was there. I don't think he was overtly concerned with what the nation thought of him.
See, and that's where I would disagree. I really believe because you can't be all in like that without
Right.
having
Once
those type
somebody
of feelings.
decides that they either are trying to kill you or kick you out or burn your house down with your kids in it and you in it, Does any of that shit matter to you? Do you think? Just put yourself in those
Yeah,
in
but
situations.
when you have love for that, whatever that is, or that person, when you have enough love for that person, it's a war. It literally is a war.
The minute you try to kill me, all that love don't
All
mean
bets are
shit.
off.
That love don't mean shit. I'm gonna keep it all the way real. The minute somebody puts a hit out on me or tries to kill me, or more importantly, puts my family in danger, it's a wrap.
Well, but see, that's what I'm saying. You're looking at the person. You're looking at Elijah Muhammad trying to kill him. I'm saying he was at war with accepting the information that he received from Elijah Muhammad. The person that's trying to kill him is basically the same person that gave him his whole philosophy that he lives by. It was,
Conflict number 6 for this man.
yeah, like he
This
was trying to
Internal
figure that
conflict
out.
number 6 for this man. You can
so
call it a journey, you can call it whatever. This
so that
man was a confused individual.
so that
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so there's a point of debate right there. There's a point of debate there.
Wait,
Like he
what's
said it's confused.
What the hell?
Like he said he's confused. Really? Like he's confused. Like so.
yeah, he could be
All right. So
confused.
all
No,
right.
that
Okay.
doesn't mean. I mean,
I think
he is very
so.
inspirational. He is very motivational. But yes, he
There's
was
I think there's a
confused.
difference between conflicted and confused, right? So conflicted means so let's keep it real here for a second. So like, does anybody here think that every single thing that he spoke about or he gave speeches about was solely because of everything he learned from the nation, or was it simply him showing loyalty to the nation by leading everything with, well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says this, but this is a brother who um, his ability to critically think and his ability to apply certain concepts and principles and his ability to instill pride in the black community. I don't necessarily attribute all that to the nation. I mean, maybe we disagree. I think within the context of the nation and build up all these different mosques, and I think he was very loyal to the nation, 100%.
I, I,
But
I think
I'm not going to sit here and act like I think that his thought process and his philosophies were entirely based on things that were given to him by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
at one what I'm telling you is at one point in time it was I believe he grew from that, but he was just like any
When he started
Christian.
out, I think
He
you're
was
right.
just like any Christian convert.
I think
Whatever
when
Thank
he started off, yeah,
I've
I
been
agree with
waiting
you.
for it. I've been waiting to say this. Go ahead.
yeah, it's like any Christian convert, whatever pastor say is what the word is, and the
I'm
word
gonna
is
let
this,
everybody know.
and that's what he was. So when he started out with the honorable, he actually meant that shit. He actually, it wasn't, I'm just gonna pay him a little bit of loyalty and
No,
respect and
like
homage. He
absolutely,
meant
absolutely.
that shit.
When he starts off, absolutely. But like you have to see the deviation, and it starts with probably when he makes a comment about JFK, and that pisses Elijah Muhammad off, right? Like, yo,
Right. And what I'm
you
saying
can't
is
say that shit.
what I'm saying is it is a longer time period for him to figure that out than what you're giving him credit
What am
for.
I giving him credit for?
What I'm saying is you're saying that, well, he figured it out, he was complex, but he could do this thing. And I'm saying that time period, whatever that was, is longer than what you believe it is.
I haven't said what I thought, what I believed it was.
Well, you've
How old was he when he
implied
passed? How old was he
40,
when he died?
He passed in
39,
65. So when was it?
39, 40, 25. So he was either
About our
39 or
age.
40.
About our age.
Yeah. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if his birthday had passed yet to make him 40, but
Man. Okay.
uh,
Okay.
See, I
I
can
mean,
see what
you
Seth is.
motherfuckers have reduced Malcolm to a bitch. Like,
No,
no, no, no,
I can
no,
see
no,
where.
no.
Hey
like
there.
let's keep it
No,
real. Everybody listening, Greg and
No,
Seth have basically said Malcolm X is a bitch.
no, I
So
did not say that.
okay, I can
Don't
Here
see
you
where.
dare
go,
say that.
strike that from the record. Number one, objection. I did not say
I didn't
that.
say that shit. Y'all
He,
know where I stand, but
he's
you know where they stand.
he's
I don't know.
leading the witness here. I'm gonna use every fucking shit I learned in LA law
Word
school.
on the street is Seth and Greg like zodiac signs and sweatshirts.
Uh, man,
My fault, Mike. Go ahead. Mike was about to jump
Good.
in.
No, I can see it. I think they're just trying to humanize them. I think we put too many preachers. This is in general. We put too many preachers and ministers on a pedestal that they're not. That they're more godlike than they are human. I think I know I've fallen into that same thing. Like most people that go to any church or participate in any religion, they only hear and learn off what is said on that pulpit. and they take that as word, as God. And I was the same way. And then once I got smart enough to read and study and research for myself, half the stuff they saying up on that pulpit ain't right. I think you saw that in Malcolm's transformation. He blindly jumped in to what Elijah Muhammad was teaching and just repeated it and repeated it and repeated it like verbatim. And that was it until he went to Mecca and really found out what it was the Muslim being a Muslim was really about. It wasn't what he was being taught in America.
I
He
think the
started to
issue.
research and study for
And
himself.
God bless that man. If he would have lived to see 45, he would have went to South Africa and became someone else.
So now it's
That's
niggas.
all I'm saying, Bob.
All right. So I guess my issue with the nation is this. So when it comes to Malcolm, I think one of the things he ran into, and so I don't, there's no God complex when it comes to Malcolm. I agree with his philosophy. So his black nationalism philosophies, 100%. Like the way he politically saw the world, 100 agree. I 100% agree with how he saw the world in the context of black rights being human rights and with black folks. I think Malcolm's focus historically was always about instilling pride in black folks and getting to the point where they understood that their strength was their blackness and who they were and where they came from. And I think he understood fundamentally the need to build black folks up first, because I mean until people are confident who they are and understand where they come from, they're no good. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of philosophy you instill, they're not going to be able to do shit. So I think Malcolm understood fundamentally the need to instill that sense of pride, right? That was one aspect of what he's doing. But I think what happened with the nation, I, I think I think early on, honestly, I think the nation, the way they were framing the argument to the people, I think was fair and valid, and I would probably tend to agree with it. But as with everything, I think as he began to build the nation up, as he began to establish more mosques, and the nation became more powerful and stronger. You know how it goes. People become more corrupt, right? So they start falling in love with the celebrity of it, right? So and I just honestly think that Malcolm was a true believer in what he believed to be this black nationalist perspective, with the black with the Muslim, I guess with the Muslim tint to it, right? So, and I think I don't think he truly understood the religion. You're right, until he actually went to Mecca and until he actually saw how it was practiced from that different perspective. But what's interesting is once he got back to the United States, is he separated the religious component from the black nationalist component, right? So, although he became more in tune with being a Muslim, not just a black Muslim, he understood the need to probably separate the religious component because he knew he wasn't going to get too far. Because people, black folks are Christian, Catholic, whatever the fuck they doing. He understood that was just going to complicate everything he was talking about. So his black nationalistic philosophy, I think, is a thing that I don't think that changed much throughout time. And I think and this is just my perspective based on the things I read. I think a majority of what he talked about was him more so than the Elijah Muhammad or the nation perspective. We can agree to disagree. I just think based on how he processed information. Now, I do think he was unhealthy in his loyalty to the nation, 100%. I think he was blinded by his loyalty. I think he was following the nation. I think he was following Elijah Muhammad 100%. I think he eventually came around after got hit in the face with that shit with Elijah Muhammad having shit babies all over the place, but and the shit being hypocritical. But um, Malcolm, from my perspective, is one of it comes across from my perspective. What I've seen is one of the more honest and genuine leaders we've ever had. Right.
I
So what do
can't
you?
disagree with that.
Um,
I can't disagree with it,
You
but what
can
do you think?
you can be that and confused at the same time. I don't
I
disagree with
yeah,
that.
I mean, we'll agree to disagree on the confusion part, but
You, you
he's
can
a
be wrong. It's
come on,
cool.
according to
come
Seth,
on,
he's a
come,
16-year-old
come on,
horny boy.
come on,
Like,
Bob. Come on, start with the Honorable Malcolm X. Just start saying
nah,
every sentence what the Honorable Malcolm X says. No,
Oh,
no. What? Let me ask you this: what do you think of the scene where basically it is implied that Malcolm is basically using Cassius?
that's where I want to get to. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thank you, thank you.
that
yeah.
shit didn't seem realistic to me either. But I'll let y'all go first.
No, 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 no.
No,
I
go
just
ahead.
I that
That's truth,
doesn't that
right? That's truth, right?
using Muhammad using Cassius.
Like he used Malcolm. Malcolm used Cassius Clay to get in old boy's favor in real life, right?
Who getting whose favor?
Elijah
Elijah.
Muhammad's favor.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean,
That I
that's
mean,
not
you
that's nothing that I've ever really heard.
okay? Okay.
I know he and Muhammad had a friendship. So like
There,
that was
yeah,
genuinely his friend.
there were
So
stories. I've heard this, but my folks I know, like my parents were old as shit. Remember, my father was born in 1916. My
mm,
father was born in 1916.
My
So
dad was born in 1915.
see, there you go. So like
old niggas.
yeah. So when I'm speaking on this is coming from this is coming from folks I actually know, not what I've read. But there were stories saying that based on Cash's celebrity as in within the black community, not
Hmm.
nationally, because at that time, you like you said, he had just won his first title. So
Hmm.
it's not the Muhammad Ali that the world knew, but his celebrity at that time, him being, I know he's from Louisville, but him living in Chicago and the whole nine yards, it was implied that if they can get him on board, it it validates more of what Elijah Muhammad was doing.
Hmm.
And so they were saying that, even though Malcolm may believe everything he's telling him and saying, hey, you could have a better life this way, he also understood the clout that he would have from having a Cassius Clay in the nation.
But it's no
Bob,
different.
I'm gonna have to check my documentary list and send it to you because I know I saw this in the documentary.
Well, you send that to me, and you send me the timestamp too.
That was on defense of Malcolm.
But you damn right. Hey, look, you damn right.
My
But
sister's babysitter, Eunice. No.
So
no, so so I don't think necessarily. I mean, I guess yeah, technically you could say anybody's using somebody because I think he was very clear, and even within the context of the movie. Um, I think his perspective would have been whatever you have, you need to use it for the advancement of black folks, right? So you need to use the platform that you have to advance the black struggle. So I think this I guess I don't necessarily disagree with y'all on that. I mean, probably yeah, there probably was a push to be like, yeah, we need you because you could your celebrity and your status as the world champ, as Cassius Clay, soon to be Muhammad Ali, can go a long way in advancing the cause. Now, I guess the question becomes we would deviate as to whether or not it's to advance the profile of the nation or advance the cause of pushing, of improving the position of black folks generally, right? So,
Me personally, I think it was if he was using them, I really thought whatever space that he was in to try to break away from the nation and start his own temple or whatever, I really thought he was trying to basically recruit Cassius to his temple.
is that based
that's
on the
what I
movie, or
thought.
is that based on some other stuff you've heard
Just
or
this
read?
other stuff I've read. Like
Okay.
it seems that once he got in, he was like, okay, you in, but I think you need to move with me in this space because the nation is on some bullshit. And but what I'm on is true uplifting of our people. So if you hang with me, we should be cool. Like then folks will see that what we're doing is righteous and upworthy versus then what Elijah Muhammad is doing. That's me
Mhm.
personally believing, from reading certain things and listening to certain interviews. I mean, there's one with Betty Shabazz where she actually pretty candid about certain things. I think it was to Jet magazine, and this is back maybe late '80s. So uh, I think that's me personally. I don't think he was really trying to recruit him for the nation. I think he was really trying to recruit him for his breakaway.
Isn't that
And then that plays on to
religion in religion in general? Like we get big voices to help spread the
Yeah,
word. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you so Sam Cooke could have been right in that dialogue. We're saying like the three celebrities, and there's Malcolm. Malcolm's trying to get to all of them to be Muslim in a sense, so he has a greater voice to spread his message.
Right.
and so that leads me to ask, the same type of vulnerability the same type of insecurities, the same type of confusions, did Cassius have those, whereas the other two were independent. Um,
Who was Sam and Jim Brown?
yeah, for the rec, and I'm just throwing that out there. I mean,
No,
um,
you kind of see that though, right? As confident as Muhammad Ali was, or at least presented himself to be, you see that even through a bunch of other like autobiographies or interpretations, right? I mean, even because we talk about the, I don't know, the intoxicating nature of the nation, right? So like, you see that, what's the movie with Will Smith, the Muhammad Ali joint,
Ali,
where
yeah, yeah,
he
it's
has
Ali.
the interaction with Malcolm, and he says you shouldn't have spoken about that, about the brother minister or about Elijah Muhammad.
Right. He
And
said, "Don't
basically,
be
I mean,
snitching."
yeah, and that's basically how he characterized him. Like he's sitting there thinking, like, I can't fuck with you, really. And but I think even within the context of that movie, you see this conflict, like even within Muhammad Ali, like I'm taking this perspective, but that's not the brother I know, right? Like he doesn't
right.
seem to take it that perspective, like the Malcolm I know. That's not, he's not, he knows, but it seems like Muhammad Ali needs the nation, right, to kind of help him through what he's going through, right? Whether that be, because I think at the time that's when he was, he needed somebody to support him
Oh,
financially.
I'm sorry. I know that you guys want to get to the other movie. So, so, Bob, do you think that the nation needed Malcolm more than Malcolm needed the nation at
Yeah,
at the
yes.
beginning? At the
In the
beginning.
beginning, uh, hmm, I don't. So let me put it. I guess I'll reframe it. I don't think the nation would have become what it was without Malcolm.
No, 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 no. Totally agree. That wasn't my question. I
Okay.
know you're a lawyer, but you're not pulling that shit with me.
What?
Did you think that the nation needed Malcolm more than Malcolm needed the nation at the beginning?
Yes
No.
or no? I just want to
Just
that
say
pick
that.
one
that
of
I
the
that
just want to
shit.
say that.
For a fact, like you try and push a black man to do some shit. Like I'm
We'll just
liable
change
not
the
to respond
subject,
to
damn
this
it.
shit off of GP. Like
I could
I'm
either
not even gonna
confirm nor
fucking answer the
deny.
question.
Yeah.
Like, but no,
Okay.
I mean, absolutely. I think because the nation, from Malcolm's perspective, is what brought him out of the darkness, so to speak, right? So you'd have to say that Malcolm needed the nation initially, early on, more than the nation needed him.
So based on this quote, kind of tying this all in, based on this quote, one of the if y'all can remember who said this, power just means a world where we are all safe to be ourselves. So was any of them comfortable in their own skin enough to be themselves?
Jim
Right.
Brown
Jim
was.
Brown. I was about to say Jim Brown. If out of all of them, Jim Brown.
I've never identified with a movie character more than Jim Brown. He walked in and said, "Where the pussy at?"
Oh, so that brings it. So that brings a more light-sided interpretation of the movie. Like I saw somebody talking about somewhere, like, why is Malcolm like the one that's killing the vibe in the
Well, I
movie?
just want to know why Malcolm have vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, and so that's the other shit. Like, does anybody believe that bullshit? Like, hey guys, would
I
you like
got
to have some vanilla ice cream?
I
Like,
got ice
really?
cream.
Malcolm's the corny nigga in this
Wait,
situation now?
what flavor is it, Malcolm?
Really, like
Vanilla.
Malcolm's the corny motherfucker now. Formerly Detroit Red is the corny motherfucker that wants like vanilla ice cream. Fuck out of
That's the
here. Like,
unbelievable stuff that I can't get along with. Like, you mean to tell
Right.
me Malcolm knew he was inviting all them over and ain't have nothing, no snack, even though he is a religious
no
guy, no snacks,
snacks.
nothing.
He didn't have to partake. That's what I'm
Like,
saying. He didn't have to partake.
But I
It's the
so that
biggest night of this man's life.
so that becomes so that begs the question. Like, so we're talking about a movie, right? So we're talking about it's you're viewing it within the context of, it is kind of, it's playing out like a play, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so, I mean, some of this shit is like just artistic interpretation, because you're not gonna sit and tell me that four brothers. I don't care how religious, spiritual motherfucker is. Like nobody's in there like, hey, you want some vanilla? Even if you don't have shit, like nobody's in here like, you want some vanilla ice cream? Like that just takes it to bitch levels.
You might
Right.
as well just ask them if they want milkshakes.
Like nigga, you just asked me if I want, and then these niggas is eating vanilla ice cream. Like that's not even realistic. Like these cats, you got the new champion of the boxing world. You got Jim Brown. You got Sam Cooke. You tell me these motherfuckers is gonna stick around? And like like in the real world, most cat that's when everybody in the room's like, all right, dog, we about to check you out later. We about to go hit the strip club. Like,
Especially when Sam had pussy all around. Like,
they say it's a
let's
fictional story, and
right,
that's
right.
seeing that as you know is fictional because ain't no
It's got to be
way.
fictional. First of all, who invited Malcolm to Miami? Like Malcolm being the serious one, like to Miami, like.
wait,
It is
that he, wait. He told Betty he was going. He was like, "You got to go speak." No,
Yeah,
no.
you know damn
Wait.
well, Betty's like, nigga, you ain't going to South Beach.
You said your
I
ass
don't give a
right
fuck.
here.
I don't give a fuck how enlightened you are. You are not going to South Beach
Who gonna
with
be there?
Cassius and Sam
Sam
and
and
Jim.
Jim.
Oh
And then,
hell
yeah.
no.
And if y'all tell me I'm meeting at y'all hotel and it ain't the Fountain Blue, that's some bullshit right there. I'm telling y'all, better bring y'all to the
Well,
Fountain
back
Blue.
but so we're looking at it within the context of being back in the '60s, though. I mean, in Fountain Blue, and that would have been Malcolm's perspective. Like, why are you over here at the white man's hotel and you're not over here giving this money to the black folks, right? So,
Right.
but I mean, I'm sure the Fountain
So
Blue was
we're
just as.
implying that the black people own that hotel.
I think that was the. I mean, that was the way it's presented in the movie, right?
Which is a black women.
I thought it was welcomed. I didn't think they owned it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think it was just
Nah.
blacks.
okay, all right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
missed that part, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's still it's still Miami. Like I was like, well, he did just win the world championship in boxing. Like he might want to fuck with some bitches.
Right. He's number one on my list. We can talk about all this other stuff tomorrow, but
That's what I was
Like
about to
that.
say.
He said we can't talk about this over brunch, nigga. Like we can't over some eggs and bacon. Like
And Sam was honest with it. He was like, "I left pussy to come do this. Like, I had some sitting in the house, in the room waiting on me."
so
What?
that part always was kind of like because even when I heard the title of the movie, I'm like, one night in Miami. Like, wait, what are they doing?
I thought it was Malcolm and Martin meeting
Oh,
in
okay,
Miami. I had
okay.
no idea it was these four brothers.
I I did know it was them. I was just like, okay, like I guess, but I feel like I feel like as smart as Malcolm was, I feel like he'd have been like, you know what? Let's set something up next week, guys. Like you guys kick it. Like you just won the world championship.
Right.
So
I know he knows he was Detroit Red, right? He knows what
Right.
time it
Yeah,
is.
right. He used to fuck with bitches. Like he's like, I used to do that shit. Like, all right, well, I get it. Like, I can't
so
expect you to give all the shit up right now. So
so in theory, you got the considered the most militant black man in America, with the most liked black man in America being Jim Brown. Jim Brown's the prototype to OJ. This
mm.
he the only one that white folks really was like, I really like this Jim Brown. Like
But you
he's
can't
the
go to
pro.
my house.
You can't get in my house, but I don't like you that much.
Right.
But I like you a lot. So you got the most liked black man in America, and then you got the most indignant black man in America, and then there's Sam Cooke. Like at this point, you got three heavyweights on one end, and then there's Sam Cooke. What is it about Sam Cooke that makes Sam Cooke special in this, other than being friends with them?
the
There's a
motherfucker can
Holy
reasoning.
sing.
smokes. What?
He can sing. He really
No, no,
What
can.
the
no. I'm saying,
hell?
I'm
Hold
saying,
up.
no, I'm saying there's a reason that he's in this movie. I'm saying like we need to dissect that. We need to actually dissect the
Yeah.
power
He
that
told
Sam Cooke
you
had.
said this three times. You said this three times that he told you he was the star.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm saying in general, the basis of this movie is when you said, "Oh, I didn't know it was these four people." I'm saying there's a reason it's these four people. This person,
I
this
know what
person,
you're
this
saying.
person.
But
Yeah,
but I think I put Sam Cooke's, if you say, I mean, was he the sexiest black man in America at that point? I mean, what label do you want to give him? But I think
yeah,
that he's
yeah.
on
What
the
is his? Yeah, what would be
I,
his label? He's not the obviously he's not the because what I would say in that in the singer realm at that time
mhm.
Mhm.
would be, as far as white people are concerned, as far as
Yeah,
knowing who he is, would be Sammy Davis Jr.
but
I'm saying, like, what is Sam?
That's
but
what
I
I'm
think
getting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
I
getting.
think
Okay.
they're genuine. I think they're genuinely friends, right? I think these are guys. These are four guys that genuinely just happen to be friends. Like so, it's I get that the movie's presented in a way like, oh, these are four folks that are significant. They're significant in the history of this country, right? But I mean, I think it's no different than you. I mean, Seth, you know this, and y'all know this, Mike. Like folks who are really good at what the fuck they do tend to gravitate towards each other, right? So, you got Jim Brown, you got Muhammad Ali. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just that's for some
Mhm,
whatever
mhm,
reason,
mhm.
that's how the shit just kind of works out. And I think
Right.
within the context of Malcolm, I think he naturally would have gravitated towards somebody like Jim Brown, or more maybe they gravitated towards him because they felt
Right.
what he
Real
was talking
recognize
about,
real.
right?
Right.
So I
Right.
mean, I think that's just so you're right. There might have been bigger, stars or musical stars, but I think, you know, Malcolm kind of, at least within the context of the movie, and indicates why what he thought of Sam and what he thought about his music and his ability to impact the community and the world. I thought these are just four friends, like shit, like anybody would talk like, okay, you need to get your shit together. And I think the role that Sam played, he represents that viewpoint that we even deal with today. Like,
Hmm.
what's the best strategy to achieve some sort of upper mobility, right? Do you basically say I need to get all the money I can make so I'm in a position to hire people and make decisions, and which means I may have to do some lukewarm ass music for some time, or be, some just basically not take any chances. I mean, how many motherfuckers do you know like that operating within corporate America today that are here like, I'm just not gonna take any chances and make sure I don't rock the boat so I can climb the proverbial ladder, only to know that, at the end of the day, you still not getting where you need to go, right? And I think Sam, ultimately, I think some of that shit probably did resonate with Sam. I don't know how real the conversation, I don't know how real the impact of Malcolm chastising him led to a change is going to come. I mean,
Well, yeah,
I
how
They
mean,
he
said that
played his
that
song.
Bob Dylan's song did inspire him that
oh,
for
okay,
that though.
okay.
But I don't
So
know if Malcolm was teasing him about it or whatever.
that's the other
Right.
side to it. Like, I mean,
Right.
like, it felt like Malcolm's easily baited by Sam talking about this shit. Like, now he got to go play this Bob Dylan song. Like, really?
Oh, it was some petty savage shit. It was
Like,
real petty as hell. He
does
was like,
anybody think that Malcolm pulled the Bob Dylan record out? Like, see, you need to be making music like
No,
this motherfucker. Like, nah,
He
like,
just travels around with that record in his bag.
right,
just
right.
chilling
right,
in his bag
right, right.
with his, with
Fuck
his
out of here.
vanilla ice
Like, it's like
cream.
me walking around with a Hall and Oates uh, song and shit. Like, fuck out of here. But
One of the interesting parts about that is that they were all going through like transitions in their life as well.
right,
Um,
right,
you know, Cassius
yeah,
was whether he's going to Malcolm or Muhammad. That's the second time
right.
I said that. He was the new champion.
Mm-hmm.
Jim had just went out to Hollywood. Malcolm was doing his thing. Either he was going to leave or whatever. And Sam was on the cusp of right that change is going to come,
Mm-hmm.
which in turn ended up to his demise. So
Mm-hmm.
that was an interesting point to see that point in their life as well.
Right. Speaking of which, like, how come has there been nobody's taken on the Sam Cooke bio
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
pick?
There's a couple.
There's just
Oh well, you talking about like a
like
superstar
a movie,
biopic?
like a biopic. Like,
Didn't
Oh
they say Nick Cannon?
shut the fuck
no, seriously, I think they were
up.
sitting there saying that.
Nick Cannon, really?
Yeah,
Well, Nick Cannon's gonna produce it, or he's gonna play Sam
he's
Cooke.
gonna play Sam Cooke.
Yeah,
Nick
I'm not
Cannon's gonna.
watching that. I
yeah.
can't. I
I
can't
mean,
watch
them
Nick
dude.
Cannon be Sam Cooke.
Well, Sam Cooke had he had an
What?
interesting look. Ain't too many people gonna be able to play Sam Cooke.
Can't take Nick Cannon seriously.
I'm
You
just
can't.
saying.
Not with his turban.
Make me Big Brother Tin Man. The fuck? Like, nigga, you will always be the nigga on drumline. Always.
God damn. God damn.
Always. Fuck out of here. Like,
No,
sorry,
but
man. Like, he's never getting out of that role. He's always gonna be
Yeah, I
there.
kind of like Drumline. It's a great movie.
I like drumline too, but he's always gonna be that role.
But
Like,
that's him. Yeah.
that's him. Yeah, Nick Cannon playing Nick Cannon.
basically. Nigga,
Nick
where's your
Cannon
snare
playing
drum
Nick
at,
Cannon.
motherfucker? But all right, so I, we can double back to that if we want to. So I do want to kind of jump into this American Skin shit because,
Yeah, let's get to
um, I know everybody got shit to do. It's a work day tomorrow for everybody basically. So American Skin, for those of y'all who haven't watched it yet, and like I said, again, spoiler alert. Um, understand that we
Indy
about to
will
talk.
piss your ass off.
What's that? Oh yeah.
Indy will piss your ass off.
So it's a movie, and I think even in talking about American Skin, you have to deconstruct the whole Nate Parker shit too, right? That people are still out here dealing with the whole allegations from '99 of supposedly him being involved with sexual assault shit,
Right.
which conveniently came out at the same time he was producing that Birth of a Nation about Nat Turner. So take that if you can't tell by my sarcasm in my voice, I don't believe none of that bullshit they were talking about him, but it is what it is. So
Hey,
I
did you
think
hear that Bill Cosby drugging women? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, man.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. Keep going.
yeah, it's just like
You had to prep me for that, man.
uh, that shit was awfully convenient. Like when that movie came out, like, oh, now he's fucking white women. Of course he is, like, because they
Right.
brought the
At
Nat
Penn
Turner shit
State.
to the screen.
Right.
Right.
But so the reason why, so one of the reasons why we decided to end up doing this episode, Seth and Mike, is because I had told Greg I had watched American Skin, and so I'll be totally candid with y'all. I was uncharacteristically very emotional about that movie, um, to the point where, and I don't have a problem saying, like, I had to separate myself from because me and my wife were watching it. Obviously my 2 year old was upstairs asleep, and our 4 month old was kicking it with us because he's a fucking 4 month old. So I had to separate myself and kind of go to another room. I just felt kind of overcome with emotion throughout the whole movie, right?
Mhm.
And so I told Greg this. I think the only reason why I kind of felt that way, I don't think I would have been. I don't think I would have the same kind of reaction if I didn't have two boys now, right? Two children.
Yeah, it was your personal connection to
Because I think if I was just out here operating just by myself, I still would have felt a certain way about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But having two boys and knowing the world you're kind of bringing them into and what is waiting for them, that shit just it hit me really heavy. And the fact that this is the space I operate on a regular basis. I mean, these are the kind of cases I take, police brutality cases. See it on a regular basis. You see police shooting folks and killing folks constantly all the time. Everybody knows where I stand on policing in America. So I mean, it's not a secret. But it was just I was really taken back by how much, because I knew what to expect, but for some reason that shit it fucked me up. Like I mean, so I don't know, and that's the kind of reason I want to kind of talk about with a couple some other brothers, that especially fathers, right?
it. Hmm.
Um, whether you have boys or girls, like I think it's the same scenario. I mean, shit, Sandra Bland, or whomever, like you still have to kind of think about those things. It's the the struggle being black in America. The shit is fucking exhausting, right? So for those who haven't seen the movie, obviously, so Nate Parker plays a father who loses his son in basically a police shooting. That's in a it's a traffic stop gone bad. Son is filming on his camera, and this officer basically ends up killing his son. Right, so he tries to wait and see if this guy gets prosecuted. You know how it turns out. He doesn't get prosecuted, and eventually Nate Parker and some of his boys. Nate Parker's a former Marine, I think,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
they end up taking over, either believably or unbelievably, take over
The
the
courthouse
police precinct,
precinct. Right.
and then they end up having this trial, so to speak, where there's inmates that are at the precinct and some average citizens who basically like, we're gonna put these motherfuckers on trial, and we're gonna see what we're gonna do, basically. So, um, yeah. So I mean, what I guess I'll let y'all kind of jump in. That was my overall, like. I was just really surprised how much it really kind of it impacted. Because from my perspective, I told my wife, I said, I'm watching this movie and I'm sitting here. Only thing I think about is I don't know how to protect my sons. Like from
Well,
because
I was going to say this movie shows you can't protect
right,
your sons. I think that's the part that you wrestle with. That's the part that hits you in the heart. That's the part that hurts you. In reality, you can't protect them, because the first thing I thought of when I watched it by myself, because like I told y'all before we got on, I had the kids watch it and I said, y'all gonna have questions, and then this is a time for us to discuss this stuff because this is real. But when I watched it by myself, the first thing I thought about is white folks and white men basically believe they are loaning the word man to us. They don't believe we are men.
mm,
They're just loaning the title to us. Like you giving out, take a nigga to lunch week type shit.
mm,
And it was I looked at that movie and I said, wow, they really don't see us as equals.
or
Now,
people.
granted, I already knew that. I already knew that. I'm just saying,
Forget equals or people, like
or
humans.
even people, right? They don't see you as a person, let alone a man. Because when it happened, when they got to the scene where you actually figured out, because, spoiler alert for all you folks, they basically give you bits and pieces of the incident the night it happens. They don't give it to you all at once. They, through gradually through the movie, they give you bits and pieces of that night. So when the scene happened where you actually saw the end result of that night, I saw myself grab my son
Mm,
and two people who don't believe I'm human staring at me while I have a complete emotional grief stricken moment.
mm,
And there's nothing I could do to change it. I can't be Superman and spin the world backwards. I can't. It's done. And that moment hit me hard
mm,
because it made me go into real life and go, fuck, I can go out here and that can happen to my kid. Like my kid is fucking, everybody's kid is bright to them. Okay,
sure.
I got you that. But no, my kid's fucking bright. My kid got a fucking full ride scholarship.
Mm,
Full ride scholarship. And when I saw that, I sat there and went, fuck me. If that happened to my son, with his full ride scholarship and all the fucking potential he has in the world, I don't know what I would do. Because I'm thinking of everything that he could have been, and it's all gone.
and I think so. I think that was one of the more powerful parts of the movie, right, where they go
Yeah,
through. So they go through all those old snapshots of this boy, right, his son. So all those moments where there'd be like a recital or whatever the interactions are, and I think that's the part you see, especially once you become a father, you think about those moments, and that's it's not the challenge, it's the struggle of how the world sees young black boys, and they try to interpret them as young black men. And you see in the context of Trayvon Martin or Tamir Rice, they're not seen as children, they're not allowed to be innocent. Their blackness somehow takes them out of that innocence and turns them into this overt threat.
right.
And when what we see, obviously, and what we interpret, they're children. So from him, and I felt you, I mean, so that moment where this is his son, and he's grieving over losing his son. I mean, this is we all see that, right? Like, I, my little son running around doing dumb shit. Like, to think that that little boy could turn into a teenager who ultimately gets subjected to that particular scenario. That shit is jarring. That's why I was saying earlier on. I'm not sure that would have necessarily resonated with me the same way as a single, non-father, right? I mean, I think obviously me being a black man, I understand, and it's emotional for me. No different than it was probably for like Fruitvale Station. I was emotional about that, but I was visibly shaken by this particular movie. My
Right,
wife
right.
knew it.
Because you feel vulnerable. There's
Right,
that word again.
right.
When you're in these situations. A question I want to pose to the three of y'all. Um, there was that part where Link is talking to his son about the talk, the
Hmm.
talk,
Mhm.
the proverbial talk that we have to give our sons,
Hmm.
um, and oh boys on the call as well. Um, and he said, "So I'm supposed to go off of away from everything that you ever told me about self respect and self
Right,
pride." He said, "Yes, just to
right,
make it home that night,
right.
or to me at night." Um, how did that hit y'all?
That shit hit me the same way it hits me when I have to go talk to when I go talk to teenagers about police brutality and know your rights. Like, we have these conversations with them, but there's something fundamental just about being a man, right? Fundamentally about being a man, and just a level of just human dignity and respect, that you have these conversations with your boys, with young men, and say, look, I understand, because you understand where they're coming from, because some of it is just a fundamental. desire to want to be respected as a human being and as a man, because there's something inherent about just you need to respect me as a man, right? But everything we tell our kids is contradictory to that just inherent nature of who they are, right?
Right.
Telling them to basically you need to swallow your pride and not do it. And it seems logical as a parent to tell your kid to do that so you get them home, right? But I always found myself struggling with the conversation because I know deep down inside I'm like I understand their conflict because they're looking at it like this is just simply this is wrong, right? And there's something within your nature that tells you like just something about me can't let this pass, right? And so I mean,
Well, just
it's
as his son was sitting there constantly reciting,
mhm.
the Constitution to him, and he's like, I
Right,
understand that. I'm trying to tell you
right,
that that doesn't apply to you. Like his son's like, I don't compute. You've taught me right from wrong, and this is wrong, and this is right, and this is law. If I'm a human being and if I'm a citizen of the United States of America, then this is law. This applies to me. And he's like, I'm trying to tell you that don't apply to you. And he
mhm,
couldn't grasp that concept. Like the first thing when I with the kids watched it. First thing they sat there and said is, I see something wrong here, Dad. That I, that boy didn't listen to his daddy.
mhm,
I
Okay,
said
okay.
that's the wrong takeaway.
mhm.
I got you. I understand. It was like you would have told me to put the phone down. I would have put the phone down. I said, I got you on that. But there's something underlining that you need to see here. Like take that out of the mix. Say you didn't put the phone down. It doesn't matter that you didn't put the phone down. You have a right to have the phone.
Right.
But there's something other stuff. But that was like the first thing they saw. They was like, well, he's not listening to his dad. I'm like,
So
okay,
now
got it.
that's because that's what I wanted to say, but he didn't listen to his dad in the car, and he didn't listen to his dad in the incident that I'm talking about.
Right, right.
Right.
I get it. The white kids don't listen to their dads. Is that did he really
I get
benefit
where
by
you're going.
putting him in that area? Did he? You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Because he
Oh,
there's
moved to a particular area,
yeah,
right?
by moving him to that area, like he's internalizing the way these white kids see the world.
Exactly.
correct.
It's two different interpretations, right? Because it's like as a father, you look at it one way, right? As a father, I just want my kids home safe to me, right?
Right.
But as a man, and knowing how I see the world, like, because I was telling my wife the same thing, like how that shit went down. It, the shit would have down totally different. I told my wife, like, I guess it depends. If I got two boys, if I still got a boy that's here, right, I got to look at this shit different, right? Because I got to be here
Right.
for the other boy,
Got to come back for him.
Correct.
Yeah.
right? But if I just have one, like it's scorched earth. Fuck it, you know what it is. It's about to go down. But yeah, it's just that's just I think that's the weight of just being black in America, right? The struggle with basic fundamental like decency and the ability to just to react as a human being. This idea that somehow, black as the non-professional here, that we expect our children to be more calm and more professional than this officer who's supposed to be a professional and this is his job, right? Is her job. Um, you know, and that's the shit we talk about all the time, and that's why, and y'all know this about me. That's why people always hear me talking about abolishing police. Like people are out here talking about reform of police and all this other bullshit. Like I don't think police have any space in black communities because of shit like that. It doesn't matter how much you reform police, it still degrades into the situation like you see in that movie where basically they see your blackness as a weapon. Doesn't matter how much de-escalation training they do. It doesn't matter how much implicit bias training they do. Because I've always laughed at that. Implicit bias is implicit for a reason. Like
Yeah.
you can't train implicit bias out because it's implicit. So like the physiological studies you read about implicit bias say that it's activated typically by your fear receptors, right? So when you're scared, that's when your implicit bias it shows up. That's why you can see white officers not shooting other white folks in certain situations where they're reaching for their gun versus a situation where a black person is walking out with a cell phone and they empty a clip into the black person, right? Because their the fear shit is activated because of the way they've been raised or the way they see black folks.
Right. It's like that
Just
video I showed you, the with the cops and the white guy that they pulled over.
Right.
I mean, they literally the cop lost his life because he didn't apply the same rules he applied to black people.
Right.
If he had applied the same rules that he applies when he pulls over a black person, he would not have lost his life because he would not have put himself in a position to lose his life. Like he sat there for 20 minutes and engaged with this guy. And the guy was like, no, I'm not getting out. No, no, I know my rights and blah, blah, blah. He said, I'm done with this conversation. You getting out, we pulling you out. And he got into a scuffle where the guy got his gun. If this was a black person for that cop, he would not have done any of that.
Right.
He's dead because he did not apply the same rules.
He gave the benefit of the doubt or
He
whatever.
gave the benefit of the doubt because that guy was white.
Right.
And that white guy killed him.
And because all black folks are asking for is equal application, right? One way or the other, right? So
Yeah,
either you give us the same benefit of the doubt or you don't give the benefit of the doubt the other way, like equal
exactly.
application.
So let's talk about the imagery of the the murderer cop.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had that little skinny white boy look, um, that used to get cut in front of in the lunch line.
Yep.
Got a badge and hid behind, whatever authority you thought came with that. Did you guys notice that as well?
Yeah, I mean, and
Yep.
I mean, I think Nate Parker was smart about that. I think that was probably intentional, right? But
Right.
I mean, that's isn't that policing? Like, because I have an uncle who, and Greg, you'll know Evanston. Obviously, he was what was he? He was in charge of the gang unit out of the Evanston Police Department.
Okay.
And he was really good at it because he was a fucking delinquent as a child, right? So those tend to be the better police officers, the folks who got in trouble as kids and understood saying where these guys are coming from. They
Right.
You
understand
know
that,
what to look for.
right? But he would always talk about how much of a coward a lot of these officers are. Like, and you have to think about the type of person that wants to take on that job, right? Who wants to be an officer and put themselves in the line? It's not. They want to talk about being honorable and shit. Like, it's not always about that. It is a power trip, Seth. Basically, what you're kind of inferring. Like, I mean, most of these guys are guys who, I mean, you see them deputies in courthouses. They overweight and they don't look like they could outrun, you know, running water. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
like, they not in shape. They use that gun as a way to give them power, and these guys that stay on the street as patrolmen, they're even worse because they're not even the cream of the crop. Like the cream of the crop at least moves on, becomes a detective or becomes a FBI agent or does something that's more cerebral. These guys are out here just want a power trip.
Right.
Right.
So, absolutely, 100%. I think that's just how this shit works. I think there's a certain profile of the type of person that wants to be in that role. And that's part of the, I mean, if you want to talk about reform, perhaps you need to have a more sophisticated officer out there on the streets. It require more. It should take longer to become a police officer than it does to become a barber. It doesn't currently, right? So, especially given what's at stake. Like,
Right.
so these folks who are
Lives.
right,
So
lives are at stake. I mean, you can't have somebody here who's mediocre and like, oh well, shit happens. Like, no, I mean,
no,
that's
Yeah. You
you
fuck
have a
up my
job where
pay.
shit.
That's one thing.
right.
Right.
Maybe I can grow it back, maybe I can't, but I'm still
Right.
here, right?
Right.
Right. You have a job where shit can't happen. But number two, like, did you, as you said, did you notice that one character? Did you notice the other character? Now,
Yep.
for folks who've seen what's his name, Luke
Awesome.
Cage.
Luke Cage, yeah.
If you so the guy who plays Shades in Luke
Hmm.
Cage is a cop in this, and he's very interesting because for people in the black community and for black, brown, whatever minority community, he's a guy who's passing.
Hmm.
Let's just be honest with that. He's passing. So he's able to pass, but he's actually
He's Hispanic.
Latin. He's
Right.
Hispanic. Yeah. So, but he's able to pass. So his whole thing is everything is black and white. Everything is this or that, and maybe black folks are just bad, and or gang folks are just
Mm,
gang folks, and we reach for certain things, and it's not always racism, and it's not always this, and it's not always that. But he's Hispanic,
mm,
but he spends his life passing for white in a world which is, I guess would I would say, more comfortable
right.
in theory. So I would, if it's more comfortable for me, I would adopt the same principles. But in the case of black folks, you can't, unless you like super light, like unless you super light, you can't pass.
You can't.
So you can't enjoy the same benefit as he's enjoying. And he's another minority. He's a brown guy.
And
But
old
he,
boy was quick to remind him that though.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know, I don't know what he said because it was all Spanish,
It was all Spanish, but
but
Right.
my subtitles didn't work. But I know he checked it.
Nobody's subtitles work. That was on purpose.
and that was on purpose.
That was on purpose. Like I felt that was the scene in Godfather with 2 where they bring old boy over from Italy, and old boy is like, "Nah, I don't know Michael Corleone."
Yeah,
That's basically what that shit was like. It was what's understood does not need to be
that
said.
does not need to be explained.
Right.
But I
Yeah,
mean, it's because
and
yeah. Go ahead, Seth.
no, go ahead.
No, it's just real talk. I mean, it's just, and so you hear all the arguments within that context of you know the whole black folks trying to characterize black folks as inherently like negative and evil and criminal and all that type of shit, which is a perspective that white folks really hold. Like, what's interesting is I saw before we got on, I just want to kind of read what people were saying on the web about the shit. And there's this article from, I'm gonna have to post it, but it was an article from somebody doing a review in the movie, and you could tell they had a agenda, right? I think it was like IndieWire or something like that. But they definitely had an agenda. A, they didn't like Nate Parker because they probably believed he was guilty of that 1999 rape shit. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first part. And then secondarily, it's probably just some white person that didn't understand the whole gist of the movie because they're like, "Oh, the movie's terrible, blah blah blah. It's not even realistic, blah blah blah."
Right, right.
Like, like anybody who's seen that movie would not say that shit is terrible. Like anybody who's seen that movie would say the movie
I
was
I think it deserves all the awards.
right. Um, because I mean, it you knew exactly what to expect, right? I know that I knew what the plot was. I knew it was about to happen. I knew it was about to be some shit that was going to piss me off, and it still, it still got me there. And for other reasons, right? But this whole idea of this, and the arguments you hear, the whole black on black crime shit, basically, like, what about black on black crime? Like, and I think they did a good job of at least touching on that particular aspect. Like, look, there's no difference between black on black crime and white on white crime. Like, white folks kill white folks at the same clip that black folks kill black folks because we live
One of
around
the
each other.
interesting parts about that was there was a couple bullet points during
Mm-hmm.
that whole trial, right?
Right,
Um, and it was giving off information the way that people can digest it now.
right,
And so it didn't elongate it. It was
right,
just, boom, here's what you need to know. And I think that's good for people who aren't very diverse in thought
right.
to get their information that way. Um, one last thing about the imagery. I want to touch on the captain.
Mm-hmm.
You see how they always put niggas in those positions, and
Right.
and so the rest of them can have that crutch to say, "Oh, we're not racist. We have a black captain." Or
Yeah,
whenever somebody gets shot, they always put the black supervisor up
yeah,
on TV.
yeah. Because I felt that. So I
Yeah.
felt that scene where his cousin, right,
Oh,
his
yeah,
cousin, and
He
so
said, "You
the
old
yeah.
ass nigga."
so the black the black captain is in he's in the living room of this young man's mother's house, right? And this is just for the folks who are listening if you haven't watched it. So basically, he's trying to get her to make public statements, and what they always do with and they always go to the mama, right? So they
Right.
always go to the mother, talking about tell the community to that just pray for peace and pray for change and basically forgive and all this bullshit. and so he's trying to get her to get out there and make a public statement to get folks to stop acting up. So he's got this got this cousin who's keeping it all the way real. The cousin's got him on camera like, "Nah, fuck you, you old ass, you sell out nigga. Like this is some bullshit. Like you come in here talking this bullshit." And I felt everything, and I thought that was I thought that was an accurate depiction of the way this younger generation is kind of seeing this right now. Because I got a nephew who's that age, like he's second year of college right now, and it's amazing to see a how aware of this shit they are, and b how much they're so tired. They're really tired of this bullshit. Like
Yeah, yeah.
the
It's a
folk,
beautiful thing to see working in
yeah,
the dorms, man.
yeah, because I mean, Seth, you know, Greg, y'all know there's like folks that are in our positions now. Like, it's too many folks who are invested in this system and too invested from a financial perspective to take any chances. So you've had, I know y'all have had these conversations with these folks who are like they're not going to step too far outside of their pocket or too far outside out of their zone. But these young motherfuckers don't give a shit. Like they
Right.
tired of this shit. They
Yeah.
don't give a fuck, and some of this is because they haven't been given the same opportunities that everybody else has had, so they don't have the same investment in the system. And some of it's just youth. I mean, youth
Yeah.
is just like it gives you the ability to make some of these decisions. But I'm amazed, and some there's a significant amount of pride in the awareness they have and what's going on. I think some of that is based on the fact that some of them are being just kind of jarred into this shit because they grew up in a world where they probably came into the world had a black president. They
Hmm.
saw some shit that made it seem like maybe this shit has gone away, and then Trump comes around, and all of a sudden this shit, although we knew it existed, it's starting to hit them in the face, and they're like, "This is some bullshit."
Well, and plus they also have those participation trophies. They also came into the world where no one lost the race.
Right,
That hits them too, because that's why they always feel if you're not with them, you hating. Like
right.
it can't be no nigga, you lost. You could
Right.
you could get better. You could change some things and you could get better and you can win. No, nigga, you hating on me. No, I ain't got time. It's part of that too. So let's go ahead and
Well,
call it
full
all the way.
disclosure,
Yeah,
everybody, Greg hates millennials.
I do not.
Greg, he can't stand none of you millennials. Like, let's keep it all the way real. Like, Greg
I
don't
just
give a fuck. He
I just
puts
know
them.
there's some flaws that y'all just need to go ahead and accept, and then we can actually have a productive conversation.
But I just thought the cousin. I felt him. Like, that's all
Yeah,
the shit you want to say to a motherfucker in that position. Like, and you got to wonder. Like, you're sitting here listening to these guys. Like, they're towing the blue line to the level. Like, this shit don't fundamentally bother you at the same level. Because what's interesting is I saw. You guys remember the episode of Family Matters where what's up, boy? What's the son's name? Eddie.
mm.
Eddie gets pulled over by a
Eddie,
police officer,
and he's a cop.
and he's a cop, and his dad. So his dad's a cop, right? So like,
Yeah,
Yep,
um,
I remember. Yep.
and they
yep.
have that interaction. Like the 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 conflict of being a black police officer has got the psychology that you go through on that bullshit's got to be a mind fuck, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
um, and I know some black police officers. I just don't believe that diversity does much to change the way that this shit goes down. I think they tend to fall in line with the culture of just this blue line shit. And I think they tend to toe the blue line, and it becomes entirely it's like a fraternity or a gang. Shit, fuck it, it's more like a gang. Let's keep it real.
Right.
Um, and they
right.
approach it that way. But I also know that these officers have challenges operating within the context of these police departments. I mean, I know enough officers that are dealing with discrimination in these police departments and even the racist shit that deal with these police departments. But they tend to be the folks who believe they can change the system from within. And there's folks in other industries that think the same way, right? Like I'm gonna move up this ladder and I'm gonna change it within rather than trying to just tear all this shit down and maybe find a way to build the shit from scratch.
The
Those
Um,
people are special.
the one episode of a TV show that resonates with me to this very day, and I can
it's gonna be
remember
something
it.
old as shit. Watch.
No, no,
Right.
no, no,
Mash.
no, no. Here you go. So wait. So it was this episode of Hill Street Blues. No, it's not
That's
that.
what I was
Wait,
waiting
no,
for.
it's
Like,
not. It's
fuck.
not that. No,
He's gonna be like
here's
in
the
the heat
deal.
of the night. Uh,
So it's this one, but it resonates like I remember it like it was yesterday. It's the episode of A Different World where Ron and Dwayne got niggas sprayed on their car.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that episode, there
They went
was
to jail, right?
right when they was in the jail, and
Mhm.
Dean Cain was the
Yep,
white dude, Superman was the white
Superman.
dude,
yep.
and he sat there and was like, "My people, my family, we came from another place to this country, and we built something for ourselves. Why can't you people do the same?" And Dwayne literally looked at him and said, "My fucking like my parents built this country. Like
Right.
my
The
we
country you came to, we
we the
built.
country you came to, we
Yeah,
built." And he said, "My grandfather fought wars for this country, and he can't go and sit down and get a cup of coffee in New York. He can't catch a cab in New York." Like that resonates to this
yeah,
very day. It's the audacity of how they feel that we are a lazy and just holding on. And they said this in the movie, An American Scared. He was like, slavery was 400 years ago. You should just get over it.
mm,
Like Jewish people don't get over the Holocaust. They make sure you remember the Holocaust.
Right.
Every day they could, they would make sure you remember the Holocaust so it does not happen again.
Mhm.
When
Yeah,
it
I mean,
comes to slavery, they like, oh, stop talking about that shit. That's shit long ago. Don't talk
but
about that shit.
but the and I was bringing to the fact. I'm like, look, fuck. All right, you don't want to talk about slavery? Let's talk about Jim Crow, which was less than 100 years ago, right? So I
Right.
mean,
mm.
we're
But
well within a century. Like, so you've got three to 300 years, excuse me, of systemic oppression, where folks were separated from their original country and placed into a country where they didn't know anybody, or the trauma of surviving a middle passage. Who knows what the fuck that did to people? And then you get here, and the brutality with which they were managed and cared, well, not cared for, just dealt with.
I was about to say it
Um,
was no care.
um, like, for folks to minimize that particular conversation, um,
And just say get over it.
to, well, I mean, these are the same people who can't get over the fact of folks either telling them to wear a mask, or can't get over the fact that the candidate lost an election, right?
Right.
Like,
right,
They
and
yeah.
we have an expectation to get over slavery, but y'all can't get over the fact that
Trump lost.
this bumble
he
idiot,
did lose.
like,
Yeah.
legitimately, and like over time, it's shown that he lost badly.
Yeah,
Like, as the numbers
yeah.
have come in, he's lost
It's still
significantly.
getting worse.
The worst in history.
Um, I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't even really have that conversation with folks. Like, anybody, like, I've stopped, you know what I've stopped doing? I've stopped having conversations with folks who don't really want to have a conversation about race. Like, I don't have time for it. Like, I really don't have time to change your heart and mind. Like,
Right.
from my perspective, the reason why people should change is that you should understand that your self-preservation depends on it. And that's the point we need to get to as a community. So these folks understand that either you change this shit, or all this shit gets burnt down. Like, it needs to be a matter of, you feel like, okay, I need to preserve my way of life, so we need to get some equity here. Because, and from my perspective, this country will go the same way of every other empire unless we deal with this original sin of slavery and the way we've treated black folks and Native Americans, for that matter. We Those two things don't get reconciled, this country's going to fall apart and disintegrate in the same way every great empire has over hundreds of years,
Yeah,
thousands of
we're
years.
well on our way, unfortunately, and the only saving grace I have in that is I'm probably gonna die before that actually happens, so I
Right.
won't be around when it actually happens. But we're well on our way to that.
Well, so doubling back to that, you kind of that kind of it implies you're talking about a legacy. Well, when I hear that, Greg, that makes me think about coming back to the movie. I think that's one of the other reasons why this shit was kind of so, it fucked me up so much, because I pride myself on, even within my job, of trying to find ways to change this thing from, not from within, but just trying to impact the way that this shit works. And you figure out how little you've changed the world and the world you're leaving your children in, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's been a struggle, right? I'm like, shit, like, I haven't done all the shit that I wanted to do, and more importantly, I haven't put my sons in a position where I feel like the world is markedly better for them than it was for me growing up,
Right.
right? And that kind of those type of things are things that like children change. You guys know this. You got kids. Like children just change your perspective on everything, on how you see the world. Like the
Mhm.
shit that you deal with as a young man, or you don't have any responsibilities and you just dealing with yourself, you take a lot more risks. You don't necessarily think about certain things because it's just you. But we start
Right.
thinking about your kids and that legacy and what they're gonna have to deal with. It just kind of changes the shit that you kind of take seriously. And that's one of the things I take seriously. That this sole issue of police brutality, and I tell black folks all the time, I think it's the single most important civil rights issue of our generation that we need to find a way to remedy. And people always think I'm joking. I'm like, get rid of police. Like I don't come to that conclusion lightly. And now I understand the practicalities of it and how unrealistic it may be based on how ingrained police are in our culture.
Right.
But now, anybody who's actually looked at this, I encourage you guys. There's a book, and I'm going to pass along to you guys. It's called The End of Policing. It's actually written by
Mm.
a Russian cat, right? But he goes through the history of policing, and he approaches it from a very intellectual perspective, and basically uses data and everything to come to the conclusion that policing is unreformable in the United States based on the model it's based on. Like it's just there's no way to reform it because it's working the way it's supposed to. Honestly, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to do. So people who are like, "Well, we need to fix this," well, police are doing exactly what the hell they're supposed to do. More importantly, we probably need to change the way that we're socialized. Because who told you that you needed police to prevent crime? I mean, let's keep it real. Police don't even prevent crime. They respond to it
Right.
by and large. They react to it. They can't. This ain't Minority Report. They can't preemptively deal with crime. It's
Well, they touched that in
unconstitutional.
the movie, Bob.
Right.
He
Right.
said we have to profile. That's how we keep these bad guys off the street. What the
Right.
fuck?
Which
Right.
is illegal.
Right. It's illegal. Right. So, but that goes to my point. Like this, we've been socialized to think that somehow policing is something that is absolutely necessary. Right. That we need police. But the reality is, policing doesn't address the reason why people commit crimes. Now, if you're one of these white folks who thinks that black people are inherently criminal and negative and beasts or whatever it is, then yeah, of course you're going to take the perspective that they need to be policed and governed. But if you're looking at it from a more realistic perspective, a human perspective, you understand that most people commit crime primarily based out of financial need, right? No, but for there's sociopaths out here. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like there's not sociopaths and psychopaths that commit murders and shit because they're just fucked up. But
Mhm.
those are a smaller percentage than the folks who commit crimes out of necessity, especially crimes against property, whether it be theft or robbery, whatever it may be. Most people are preventing. They're doing that shit because they're trying to close a gap. So, practically speaking, if you address the issue, the reason why people are committing crimes, you provide them with opportunities. People aren't gonna. If you talk to anybody in the hood, most folks, I mean, some people tend to fall. They tend to fall in love with the intoxication of just the life sometimes. But the reality is, like most folks you talk to would be like, I don't really want this life. If I could do some other shit that I can make some money on, I would do that shit, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
Everybody's trying to find a way out, man.
yeah, I mean, so you need to give these people opportunities. But so when you talk about policing doesn't it just doesn't it doesn't fix shit. All it does is complicate and create
Like
problems,
you said, it's
especially in the black community.
reactionary.
Right.
Um,
Because the biggest fallacy that police present to the world is that they're somehow out here preventing crime. Like they're just not. I mean, there's some situations where yeah, they are. The smarter police officers, whether it be like vice units or the more sophisticated units like DEA stuff like that, they may be out here trying to prevent some of this stuff from happening. But by and large, they have to be reactionary. The Constitution demands it.
you know,
So if that's the case, why are we putting all this money in? I mean, where Greg and I live here in Columbus, Ohio, this last year they spent $300 million on policing, a third of their
how
budget.
much?
300
300
million,
million.
a third of their $1 billion budget. They spent 300 plus million on policing.
Wow.
You know how much money the city budget put forward for public education?
How much?
$500,000.
What?
So while you invest $300 million, and I'll draw a caveat here, but while you invest $300 million in policing, the local Columbus public schools do not have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. So that tells you the
Yep.
priority, right? Now, what they'll tell you is that well, the schools in Ohio are they have a significant amount of funding they pull from state budgets or other, but it still shows you a priority, right?
Yeah, if you invest, you can still invest more into those schools. I
Right. I
mean,
mean, imagine
one
if imagine if you invested 100 million into schools and still kept 200 million for policing.
right.
Imagine the difference that that would make, and that's just the city, right? So like salaries or after school programs or closing those gaps, like
Let's start at 1 million. Shit. I mean,
right,
the
right.
hell?
So I mean, so when people start talking, when and people get mad about language, like oh, they get mad when you hear defund. You got fucking Jim Clyburn out here talking about like oh they use defund and they started fucking up our races down ticket. If you don't, I mean, all due respect, shut the fuck up.
so so everybody
Bob back then.
Bob hates Jim Clyburn.
I don't hate Jim Clyburn. I just get tired of old niggas out here
Wait.
trying to tap dance their way into some bullshit because they get some clout, and you over here pushing a fucking Harriet Tubman bill, like as if that's the landmark legislation
My
you pushing.
goodness. Is that, man?
But you got the nerve to talk to black folks about not using defund the police because it affected these white folks' races down ticket that didn't spend money the way they should have in their campaigns. If you don't shut the fuck up talking to me, Jim Clyburn.
When he gets his Jim Clyburn voice, I know that's when he upset.
Because I mean,
Ooh-wee.
I defer to my elders across the board generally, but the reality is like what I can't stand is when they're so invested in this structure and this system that they can't even pay attention to shit that matters. Like he legitimately said that I think the day after the election he went in on the defund the police shit. That was the first shit he talked
Oh yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. They had him right up there on Fox News, and he's sitting there talking about it.
Rather than okay, if you don't agree with the language of what it's called, okay, try to explain it and explain to people that what defund the police doesn't mean this. It means that we're trying to reallocate
Reappropriation.
these resources in a
Yeah.
way that actually addresses the issues that cause crime in the first place. I
Right.
don't know, maybe be a civil servant and actually try to educate the public on what the fuck is going on rather than playing politics and trying to make sure you you falling under the umbrella of Biden and making sure that you don't offend these good white folks.
Well, that's the one thing they've always
I
had
mean,
a
he's from
problem
South
with.
Carolina, so fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah. They don't know how to control the narrative. But the problem I see here is you spent 300 million just talking about Columbus for a second.
Mhm.
You spent 300 million on policing, and Hilltop's still the way it is.
Yeah.
So you basically blown $300 million because for folks who don't know, Hilltop is an area where there is a significant crime
Mhm.
problem to the degree in which residents of Hilltop is just like, please come help us. Folks in Hilltop feel like Chicago 2016. Like that's how they feel. They want help. So you spend $300 million on this budget, and they don't have any results.
Mhm.
That's the part I don't get. You
Because it
you
has to be put in prevention, not reaction. I mean,
exactly
I mean,
I
what
mean,
the
but it
hell?
seems like it seems like a logical like thing to do, right? Like, oh,
right.
maybe we should address these things that actually impact the stuff. Like, I don't know, after school programs or early child early child care or I don't know, public education or workforce development, the shit that actually matters. But you giving all this money to police who aren't qualified to do all this shit. And I get it. Some of it is packaging, right? So people are easily manipulated. So you have to package it in a way that they're not offended in order to accomplish it, which is why I can't stand politics. People ask me if I'm getting politics. Like I'm like, I can't do it because it's just you have to give up too much of yourself to accomplish shit, right?
Right.
I mean,
Mhm.
and that's just the nature of politics. If you're going to be in politics, you need to understand you're going to have to concede some shit. You have to. Like we're not in power. Like you have to concede some shit. But but the reality is like some of the shit is right and wrong, right? I mean, how we deal with policing in this country is just and I'm just amazed as to how easily everybody is so easily manipulated by it. And I'm not even talking about white folks. Like, conversations I have with black folks who are like, oh, well, what do you mean get rid of the police? That's because they over here worried about who gonna protect me from these niggas.
Right. You go.
Like,
I'm I'm a middle class black man. I
right.
can't
That's
have
what it
these
is.
niggas
Like,
coming up in
And
my
that's
right,
the
shit.
truth. And that's
living
the
in
truth.
living in that gated community. Like, who gonna keep these niggas out of here?
Yeah,
Black
that's the
folks
truth.
are the worst ones. Like as they go to their Jack and Jill shit, worried about folks coming in and taking whatever they got, or worried about not being. They worried about making sure they maintain their one seat at the table without making sure there's access for everybody because there's only
Yep.
room for one. Y'all know that. And like sometimes we our worst enemy.
Hmm.
If we could just simply come together on our own, that would be half the battle. But I don't know. So I mean, back to the American Skin shit. I mean, it just what did y'all think about the ending of it? I mean, it was kind of predictable. I mean, there's always a point, and this is the perpetual hope of Black folks. Sometimes, like maybe this one time it'll be different.
Oh,
Man,
once okay. So here's where I sat there and said, okay, let's be realistic about it. Once he took over the police department, like once he
There's no
took
way
over
he's
the
getting out of there
precinct,
alive.
I was like, that nigga's not getting out of here alive.
Which is why he
no,
should have shot that motherfucker.
right.
Let's keep it real. Like, and I want to take a poll. Like, that movie would have not gone. I know Nate Parker was trying to do some profound shit. He'd have been dead. Like, oh, he guilty. All right. And I'm to be honest with you, we would have had the trial, innocent or guilty. He's dead. It's a wrap.
He would
Right.
have got shot when we were in the sitting across from the table.
Right. That moment right there, like,
Now we're gonna talk to the rest of y'all and see y'all's fate.
yeah,
Right.
like that's real talk. Like, people think that's just bravado they hear. Nah, that's real talk. Like
Yeah.
that's a movie, but if that opportunity presents itself, like fuck it. I mean, but like I told y'all before, obviously that depends on who you're leaving behind, obviously. But
Yeah, because
um,
Yeah,
what I was looking at in the process was how long SWAT was allowing them to just go ahead and have time. In my head, SWAT's not built for that. SWAT's like, look, we're gonna try to minimize the casualties, but we going in. That's how SWAT works.
right,
So the mere fact that we were able to get a good 45 minutes of them inside the precinct to have a trial was like, okay, this is unrealistic.
yeah, because they wouldn't have gave a fuck. Like,
They would have
but
went in.
one of the things that I found interesting, Link and his baby mama were separated,
mm-hmm,
and she tried to use the come on home
Right.
deal.
mm-hmm.
Is that a tactic that's used in these situations? I mean, we have enough of a sample size to know um, that, and then oh boy, his wife, the cop, and his kid were on the phone together. It was
Right,
just interesting how they displayed that.
Yeah,
right.
that's a tactic that's often used actually because it in those situations, most folks will tell you anything that will disorient you or get you second guessing what your plan would be gives them time to figure out a plan to subdue you, kill you, whatever. In
Uh,
in in theory, that was designed to fuck his mind up
Well,
because
do
now
you
he's
guys
like,
think
oh,
that
I
was
gotta come
got
home.
you.
but
I got you.
you think that was coordinated from the police because he called her? She called. What did she call him directly? Or he called her.
She called him directly, but
She called him.
we
But they
don't know if they called her
but because
first.
they cut that call off though. Remember they cut the cell phone
Well,
tower off in
they'll
the
play
middle of
good
it.
cop, bad cop all day long.
Um, I didn't interpret that as her. Yeah, I didn't interpret it as some sort of tactic from police trying to get her to do. I think she genuinely was coming from a place of kind of. It's no different than as parents when
Trauma
we're like
bonding.
we want our kid to come home, right?
Right.
Like it's the same situation. I think
She wanted him to come home. Yeah.
she wanted him home. Like she understood. But there's some women who
But
like
that wasn't home though. That's what
yeah,
I'm
but
saying.
right. But I think
It hadn't been for a while.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah, and I get that. I gotta, I get that. But
I think it was the trauma of them losing a child. I think
yeah,
what she implied was like the love was still there, but the them losing their son is the
I
shit that
can't lose
pushed them
anything else.
right.
Yeah,
And
Right.
I think that might have brought it home for her. Like there's still something here for us. Us
right.
we can recover from this together. Like I mean
Mhm.
I've never dealt with that tragedy. It's just I can imagine that's traumatic enough to the point where there probably still was something there, but they just didn't know how to manage that, deal with that, and they just kind of separated and moved on. And I think she generally was calling to bring him, want him to come home. But then again, there's some sisters who are like in John Q, where the sister was like, "You do what you got to do."
Well,
Like
that and then I'm thinking about the negotiator,
That's what I'm saying.
where they
right,
actually used his wife.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, "You fucking used me."
Right.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah.
But yeah. So in that context, I don't think she. I think she was genuinely trying to get him home. But um, and it's funny. I had that conversation with my wife. I was like, she was like, "Well, what would you do?" I was like, "They dead," and she was like, "I understand." I
And
mean,
I
but
and I expect myself to, I know I'm gonna die. Like
right.
like
Yeah, yeah. Greg's
you
right. As
know,
soon as you went in there, like, there's no, when it comes to police and other police, they ain't playing around with that shit, like, because they looking
Mm-mm.
at it like,
Nope.
no, this shit can't go. We can't have everybody thinking they're gonna take over all these precincts. This he got to go down. Um,
so my tears, like raw tears,
uh,
yo, um, came when he told the filmmaker it's what was the line that he used about the story was told or you know what I'm saying
mhm. I
at the
forget. I'm trying
end
to
there.
remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that was.
When he sat there and said, "So you were trying to teach the cops or show the cops," and he was
Oh
like, "No,
yeah,
I was
show
trying to
the
show the
world. He
world."
said, "Show the
Yeah,
world." Yep,
I was
show
trying
the
to show the
world.
world.
Yeah, I couldn't control it after
Mm,
that.
yeah.
Um, and he looked right into the camera at that point. That was a powerful moment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Nate Parker did his thing with that. I mean, like you right about that, Seth. Like I don't. I mean, I'm not. Movies don't get me that shit. And I was surprised because we've seen enough movies. Like, I've seen Fruitvale
Yeah,
Station. I've seen enough of it for. But I think the other part of it is, and you guys tell me what you think about this. I think it's the weight of just everything that's going on. Right, the summer that we just had. And it's not like the people ain't been getting shot and killed. Like we know that, but it's just the shit feels like a lot right now.
Hmm.
I don't know if y'all feel the same way.
I,
Um,
I
it, it,
described it today as a. I don't think regurgitation is the word I use, but it sort of summed up our summer.
mhm,
Um, it wasn't George Floyd or whatever, but we've seen this for
right.
decades. So we could identify with it, and like I said, it hit a lot of bullet points that we see on social media that need to be addressed or that are addressed. Um, it was just a perfect encapsule of what we've been through for the last 10 months as a nation.
Yeah, I mean it's shit. This shit is just it. Being black in America is a lot. I mean, just from and to know what we manage on a regular basis, and for me, it's felt even more being an unapologetically black man these days. It feels like there's an attack on that as well, just generally from multiple perspectives, right? Um, it's just you do just get to the point you kind of like fuck. I mean, what do you do? And surprised we haven't gone crazy by now. I mean, I think the fact,
Some of us have.
yeah, but shit, I'm surprised. What's actually more surprising is that more of us haven't gone. What was the cat's name?
Yep,
He was in the military and
out in LA.
yeah, he was killing white folks up. Um,
Oh shit.
fuck was
Yeah.
his name? Like it
Cat.
was after what was it after? It was after
Um,
I forget what was happening, but it was a brother. He was a former military guy, and he just went ham. He had like a manifesto that got released online, and
yep.
he was going in talking about the inequities of just being black in America. And I'm surprised that more there haven't been more situations like that. And we're probably crazy for not having gone that far yet. Like collectively as a people, we're probably more. It's probably crazy that we haven't. You see how crazy white folks got over just this one election.
Well, that's a you just brought that up. That's a powerful moment also in the movie when Nate Parker's on the phone with her and he's like, "We're the only people who are expected to just keep taking it. We take it on the cheek, then we have to take it on the other cheek, and we cannot respond in kind. We cannot actually have a human reaction to stuff. Black folks are always expected to just be docile.
Mm,
And I think that is what keeps us from or having examples of a bunch of people going crazy.
Mhm.
You have you there's an expectation of black folks being docile, and people
Mhm.
buy into that. People literally buy into that. And that keeps us from going to that level. But like he said white folks, they just they just respond in violence.
Right.
And they don't ask for permission. They
Chaos.
don't, it's pure chaos. I mean, January 6th showed that.
I mean, that's terror. I mean, I know they're using that word, but that's exactly what that is terror.
Mhm.
And it's not like this is an isolated incident. This
Right.
is generation upon generation that this is
Yeah.
how they respond.
Right. And so when Shade sat there and said, you niggas make it hard for us to empathize with you. Well, you white folks make it very hard for us to empathize with you.
Well, I mean, you don't have to look no further than KKK to understand the that understand white violence and white domestic terrorism. Those are the original white domestic terrorists, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
so and we talking about police. That's basically what police emerged into when it became uncouth and unsophisticated to maintain, outwardly at least, the KKK and what they were doing. White folks transitioned to law enforcement. Okay, well, we're going to do something that's a little bit more respectful because, even we acknowledge that this is a bit much as far as, there's white hoods and hanging niggas from trees, excuse me, and having, parties and shit, celebrating the shit, and put pictures where people are having drinks and shit while niggas are hanging from trees. Um, Even they realize like that's a bit too much, but we're just gonna transition this shit to law enforcement, and we're gonna start creating shit that criminalizes blackness, right? So we're gonna start we're gonna start creating vagrancy laws, even though you motherfuckers just got released from the plantations. Of course, you ain't gonna have no place to live. But if you can't establish that you have some place to live, guess where you going? Back to the sharecrop, and you
Yeah.
going right back on the plantation under the umbrella of you committed a crime, and we're gonna reestablish the slavery under that particular umbrella because the problem is once you motherfuckers got a taste of freedom, you achieve too much too quick in Reconstruction, right? So like, I mean, it's just and we talked about this before in probably one of our first shows, Greg. Is the idea that as soon as black folks build something, it gets torn down or destroyed or infiltrated and manipulated and blown up from the inside. Um, it's just that's a bit of a tangent, but I don't know. I mean,
So what's the answer?
to which part?
I mean, if they're gonna take what we build and keep changing laws and keep
Yeah,
coming at us, what
yeah. The answer has to be, and I alluded to this or I said it directly. If white folks don't feel some level of self preservation in the from a perspective that if I don't change the way we do this shit, that all this shit is going to blow up and burn down, they have to feel that. I think before you'll see any change. Like this appealing to their better angels and all this other shit, that's not a real thing. Like, and you're expecting white folks to voluntarily give up power. Like nobody voluntarily gives up power. That's against human nature, right?
so
Um,
we gotta take it.
got to take it, or like I said, it's got to become a matter of self preservation. Like they feel like, okay, either we do this and we survive this shit, or we do this and nobody survives it. That's the other option.
Mm.
This motherfucker gonna burn to the ground, huh?
I mean, because the nature of white folks, right? Like
Right,
the nature of white folks is they not gonna give it up. So
right.
basically, it's just gonna burn down. Like
Damn.
because tell me tell me what y'all think because I've talked about this with my wife. Like I'm this is the past I guess probably the past few years is the only time I've really given serious thought to the idea of moving out of this country.
So
Like legitimately, like I asked her straight up. I said, "Would you be comfortable with moving someplace else, like repatriating to Africa, like Ghana or someplace like that?" Like she was like, "But all," and I get her perspective. She's like, "Our families are here," like, and I understand that. That's what makes it a challenge or difficult because you have family here, and that's hard. But I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I'll be honest with y'all. This shit gets any worse. Like, I have no problem getting the fuck out of here. Like, and I've ran into more and more black folks. I know Seth, you said you thought about it too. Like, I run into more and more black folks who are like, you know what, fuck it, let's just get out of this motherfucker. Like, this
See,
is
I'm one of those people. I just hold dual citizenships.
Well,
which
yeah,
is
I
fine.
would come
Yeah,
back now.
yeah,
Shit, I
yeah,
got I
which is
got some
fine.
fans
He
working
said I
over
still
here,
got
but
to come back to Vegas from time to time.
Right,
Mike, like, I still got to hit South Beach. Shit.
with Sam Cooke.
Right.
he said South Beach and white women. I can't give that up.
Right. Shit.
That's what Sam Cooke was saying. Jesus Christ, no.
I'm talking. Still got to hit live on a Sunday now. Shit. Ain't
Oh
nothing like
shoot!
live on a Sunday. But no, I mean, like, being black in America, that's those are the considerations you have to have. Are you like, fuck it, do I want to live in this motherfucker? Because you see that this shit ain't changing, and it's not changing at the clip it should. Like, I get so tired of motherfuckers telling us that we should be waiting for this incremental change. Like, the 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 right to live is somehow some right that we have to slowly wait for.
Right, to
Like,
live
oh,
to live in terror. To live
right.
in. I mean, that's how the fuck we live.
Got to wait for white folks to come around. Like, well, just give them time, y'all. Give them time for what? To realize that it shouldn't treat black folks like less than human.
That's the thing that disturbed me so much about the movie was they never mentioned, well, brought up the fact that the kid was shot in the back. Like he was
Oh, true.
detrimental to, as a black man, you were so feared, or as a white man, you were so feared for your life that a kid running away from
Mm.
you
Right.
Is a threat.
was a threat. So you
Mm.
had to shoot him in the back. And that was never brought up, and I was kind of disappointed in that fact.
Well,
That's a good point.
part of me thinks it's just bullshit. Like, I mean, you know, how many officers I run into in these cases I take where like they're trained to take that perspective. Some of that I felt like in the movie was manipulation, that emotion of like, I was afraid. Like, you wasn't afraid. Like,
No.
you weren't afraid.
That's their tagline.
But he
You,
said we're trained. We're trained to. I
Right.
mean,
That's why I was about to say the tagline of "We are trained not to de-escalate the situation."
Which is
That
true.
resonated me.
Which
That
is true.
resonated with me. Yeah.
they're
and then the
trained to
go
make it
home
home.
part.
They're trained
Right.
to. They're trained to make it home by any means necessary, and
Yeah,
that's
but you know what? That humanizes them too much for me, right? Like, because the reality is like everybody's trying to make it home, but the reality is you put yourself in this situation to not make it home.
Right. Right.
So I ain't got time for you to talk to me about you making it home when you created this scenario. You've admitted you profiled this person, and like you created the scenario, and you knew he didn't have a fucking gun. You knew he didn't have a
You
gun.
knew what it was.
Right.
You were saying
But
phone. Put the
but
phone down.
but what it was this Negro decided not to obey me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he decided to leave, and I didn't want him to leave. So I'm going to shoot you
Mhm.
to show you that you just can't leave my presence without my permission.
Because you're not a human being to me.
That's what that was.
You're less. That's the only way you interpret that scenario that way. You don't think this person is human. Therefore, something as simple as them wanting to remove themselves from a situation where you know it's not a threat, you say, "I'm going to shoot this person."
Because they didn't obey.
Like
When he said, all you have to do is comply.
they wouldn't shoot a dog like that.
No,
No.
no, no.
Well,
Um,
and that's the difference. The dogs are their pets.
right,
We're their or they think that we're their property.
right, right, right,
Yeah, they'll
And
treat you
then
like that
and
forever.
then the cut off from the news scene to the sports.
right.
Mm,
We lost Mike, huh?
with
Um,
Monquarius.
um,
With
Stop.
what's it say? Monquarius.
right, right.
That's what they got the blackest name.
Like real talk, man. So like, yeah, I mean, and that's how it is. Like they just turn the channel, and I think we talked about this past summer and everything that's been going on. I think the reason why you've seen any level of traction that you've seen is because there wasn't shit else on TV this past summer, right? Wasn't no sports to look at, wasn't nothing to watch. People were forced to watch this shit on their TVs at
You
home
had
in
to
the
see it. It was up
pandemic.
close and personal, man. Like, it's cliche, but a lot of these killings happen all the time
Yep.
across America.
Hmm.
but we had nothing else on TV. You had to sit there and digest it. You had
Right.
to sit there and watch it. Um,
And I talk shit about Martin, but that was one of the impacts of the civil rights movement and the nonviolence campaign and the sit-ins and everything that people saw on TV. When I think that was one of the reasons that moved the civil rights legislation is people were seeing this stuff on primetime television where black folks are being attacked by dogs, being hosed down. It's one thing to hear about that shit and then to see it visually, where it gets to the point where even white folks are like, okay, like we might be wilding the fuck out a little bit here. Like this is a bit much,
Right.
because on some level, we all are human. So on some level, it has to resonate with you, right? On some level, your morality has to kick in because of who we inherently are on some level. So there's got to be some level of conflict somewhere deep down inside. So the folks who aren't sociopaths or who aren't trying to manipulate the situation for their particular position, they're going to look at it like this is fucked up. And I think that's what you saw this past summer is white folks who were legitimately and honestly involved in the struggle. Like, okay, I didn't, I wasn't paying attention before, but now I'm paying attention. Probably because I'm forced to, but here I am, right? Um, and to those white folks, fuck it, hey, I'm happy that they see it that way now, right? So, and I know plenty of folks who are genuine in how they approach it. But you know, it's just shit, man. Being black in America, fuck.
it's a lot, man, but it gives us alligator skin, as old Tom McKinney used to say. Um, and I wouldn't trade this shit for the world, man.
No, I wouldn't, and that's what's crazy, right? Is like knowing
Yeah,
all the shit we deal with. I wouldn't want to be anybody else but who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I love being black.
yeah,
As much of a struggle it is, I mean, I love it. I love it. Everybody wants to be us. Everybody steals our culture because they want to be what we are, despite everything we've been through.
and
Um,
it's just us. It's just in our bones.
Seth, real
So like,
quick,
you
Seth, real quick, you were talking earlier about like the talk, and you know what I thought about immediately because my father had that talk with me too, and I'm trying to. People always ask like, "Oh, when do you remember first being profiled?" I remember being first being profiled. I think it was a summer in either high school or shortly after graduating. It was a summer probably, and I'm not gonna say names just because I don't want them to necessarily, they may not be comfortable yet. But like, one of Seth and I's teammates, he lived over there on the west side, with over there by the Banneker Center, Seth. So like, we were
know,
going. I forget whose house I was going to like all summer, right? Like, you know how we used to do it. We used to be over
yeah,
there all summer. Literally every day I went over there, I got pulled over by the police. The whole
wow.
summer, every day. Like I got stopped. Like, where you going? Like, dude, I'm going over here. Like,
The
fuck.
same place I was going yesterday, motherfucker.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But because so in Greg, like the area where this was, like this is the black area of Bloomington, Indiana, right? So like it's just there is believe it
Yeah.
or not, there's a black area of Bloomington,
Well,
Indiana.
yeah, I was just gonna let that slide. I was like, okay, if you
Right.
say so.
Well, believe it or not, there's a lot of folks from Gary and Chicago and Bloomington that
that
that moved
yeah,
down there.
And now,
But
that migrate down here.
oh yeah,
yeah,
they hiding out. Okay,
but shit.
Or running away, one of them.
right, right, right.
So, but shit, we've been going for a while. So much so that we lost Mike T. He let us know in the chat he got to bounce until next time. So, if y'all didn't hear his voice, that's what happened. He had to get the fuck out. But shit, yeah, I enjoyed. I'll tell you what, brothers. Like, I enjoyed actually at least decompressing the movie because I mean, I was that movie, the American Skin. It genuinely touched something to me that movies don't typically get
No.
to. Um, it was a little rough to handle, and like I said, I think that's just from being a father. So I wanted to get the perspective of other fathers, especially other black fathers, because I knew
Right.
you'd probably understand, and I think you did. But I appreciated the conversation. So I mean, with that being said, I'll let if y'all got any closing comments before we kind of move on to the what the fuck news segment and let y'all have your night back.
Yo, I
Oh,
just appreciate being part of the conversation, man.
No doubt.
Thanks for including me.
oh, most definitely, man. Like,
Even though y'all don't like Malcolm X, but that's all right.
Man, I love
man,
Malcolm.
see. Here he go. Here he go. He go.
Uh,
Well, this is the
so,
part in court. I'd be like, Your Honor, he's being very hostile.
oh, now I'm hostile because I like Malcolm X. Got it. See how they do it.
He's a threat. His back is turned to me.
Right, right, right. He's existing. He exists.
He exists.
He exists. Him being here is a threat. But no, so I don't know, Greg. If you ain't got anything else, we'll just jump into it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm
So
good.
we appreciate it, obviously. So as always, y'all know we got the what the fuck news segment. I'll be honest with you, I didn't come up with anything this time around, but I'll let Greg kind of do his thing. I know he came up with some bullshit, so
Because this shit's funny to me. I don't know. It's a what the fuck for real. So,
it's the what the fuck news segment. Did it,
yeah.
did it.
So basically, in North Carolina, Leland, North Carolina, I didn't even know that Leland, North Carolina was a place. But all right, so this
Country
guy,
as hell.
yeah, this guy, Anthony Dow. So, okay, so this guy gets a new car. So, okay, that's good news. Okay, you got a new car. So you stunting and riding around and you doing your thing. This some bitch hit two deers in his brand new car, fucks his new car up. So he's having a very, very, very bad day. So you know what he does? The same shit I did today with my bad day. When I told y'all I was having a bad day today, I actually just took my ass to bed. Remember when your parents back in the day used to be like, all right, go to sleep. Yeah, I took my ass to sleep. So
Sleep it
Anthony,
off.
yeah, Anthony Dow took his ass home and went to sleep. When he woke up, he checked his fucking lottery ticket numbers. This some bitch hit Mega Millions.
How much?
Looks like he won. The ticket was for 1 million, but he played the double something or other. So he's gonna come out with about $2 million.
Cash option me, please.
Yeah, go ahead and cash that right on out.
I'm
Right
about to
on
go to
out.
sleep right now, man.
You say, shit, is that all it takes? Just go to sleep? Shit.
You done fucked up your new car with hitting two deers, and then you wake up to go, I'm a millionaire?
You
Oh,
know how many
fuck.
times in my mind, I've walked through how I'm gonna spend the Mega Millions or Powerball? Like so much to the point where, like, I mean, I legitimately, I think it through so much, like, oh yeah, I'm about to do this to the point where I think I actually have the money.
Dude, I'm gonna tell
It'd be
you.
like routine, like everybody's supposed to be on the same page as soon as
Right,
you get it.
right, right. Real talk, like I got it all planned out. I know it don't matter how much it is. I'm always taking the cash option, baby.
Oh, hell yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think
Go
most
ahead.
black folks are, honestly, because shit, like black folks don't trust nobody to give us shit over a period of time.
No, I don't know what y'all gonna be doing in 5 years. So I'll get my shit now.
Like, nah, I'll take that now. I'm good.
There you go.
I
Black
got a
folks.
mattress to put it under.
Right.
That's the only time black folks honest with themselves. They was like, with our health conditions and shit, I don't even know if I'm gonna be around in 10 years. Fuck
Right.
that. Give me my
Nah,
money now.
like I'm good. Fuck y'all. I'm
I
good. I
like
don't trust
pork too
y'all.
much.
I don't trust y'all to give this shit to me. Like they'll find a way to be like they'll find a way to be like, oh, your child support is due. All right, cool. Fuck it. We need that.
They're
Don't
taking
just
all
go and
of it.
take that right now.
And you're
Yeah,
gonna get some more kids too from being on TV. So we
right.
gonna take
Like
that.
so, yeah, this bitch is gonna come out of nowhere. Like who? Like
Yeah.
who? Fuck out of here. You know that's how that goes down too. Like, oh, I remember that nigga. Like
Don't
he's the one that
nobody
was
know
he's the
me.
one that was throwing all them ones up that one day.
Okay.
Get you the Paul George treatment.
All right. Here you go. He
Right,
was drunk.
right.
So
You remember the champagne room, motherfucker.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but shit. No, I mean, hey, fuck it. Good for him.
Yeah.
I know,
Definitely
right?
what the fuck. Like, hey, I ain't mad at him. I ain't mad at anybody getting their money off. So, shit. It's all
Hey,
good.
shout out to the deer too, man. I mean,
Shit, maybe get some good deer jerky off
you
that
know what I'm
shit.
saying?
I know, right?
Make a bad situation better. But hey, we appreciate we appreciate y'all. Seth, appreciate you, man. Mike, appreciate you as well. Um, Glad to kind of deconstruct those episodes and those movies for our first episode of the official Black History Month for folks like Greg who only honor Black folks in February. Um,
Not true. Not true at all.
over here, in reality, all out of folks podcast, we celebrate black folks all day, every day. But as always, you can check us out wherever you digest your podcast information at. We appreciate y'all for chiming in and checking in. Hit us up. We like to hear from y'all. We'll shout y'all out from time to time. Greg, I'll go ahead and let you close it out, man. Let them know.
As always, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. We are the All Out of Thugs podcast. And I'm telling you right now, we're everywhere. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. We on Stitcher. We on Lipson. We on Instagram. We on Twitter. We on Audible. We on Facebook. And we all out of fucks.
We all out of and put some respect on Malcolm X's name. We out this bitch.